sorts of remedies so that they can continue with the studies. Things have been very tough for them because the school vans have stopped coming because of the fuel shortage. There are teachers who are teaching them inside this orphanage only. They know that they have to continue the study. If at all they don't do so, then their life will be very difficult over the period of next few days. How many children do stay here?
Up to now 18 children are there.
Okay. Things have been very difficult, must have been for you for the last 4 months. No fuel or shortage, they are not able to go to schools also.
Yes, very difficult. We do our best that moment.
We do our best as per the moment. That's the motto after which these students are being taught by the teachers. It's a beautiful, picture which we can show, but the tough life which they are facing is something for which the world need to come out. Apart from few of the Indians and few of the international community, there's much more need to be done by the international community to come and help out on all these children who have been staying here. The struggle in Sri Lanka has reached 100 days, and this is a village which is known as Gota Gogama, where the protesters sat for 100 days, and what they're saying that certainly they have somewhat managed to win because they have managed to throw away Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the then president of Sri Lanka, as well as Mahinda Rajapaksa, the prime minister. Over the period of these 100 days, they have innovated this village so much that they have named it 420 Hill Street, and several other names have also been given to these tents which are there. They have also made their small kitchen gardens because they know that Sri Lanka loves farming, and this is what they have to do. We are inside this camp, which is the camp for making all these posters, paints. Gotabaya has left. What next?
Yes, we win, and we won we left to the Mahinda Rajapaksa, earlier Prime Minister, and Gotabaya Rajapaksa also left his presidency. Now we are waiting for our action presidents, Ranil Wickremesinghe. We want to the left his presidency. Then after we are waiting how they are running for our parliament, because there is lots of corrupted and bad politician. We want every bad politician left the parliament. Then after we are waiting for maybe 1 week, 2 week, 2-3 months, we don't know. And we want to see the better Sri Lanka for the next generation. The majority is people know how what they need to then after for the next election.
That's why people are the majority, because numbers certainly does not matter too much for the individuals. 100 days, and they are still willing to go more further till the time Ranil is also out from his post.
With that, it's time to hand it back to Swati Joshi for India Up Front.
Thank you very much, Pranesh. Good evening, viewers. You're watching India Up Front, and I am Swati Joshi. Well, get ready to shell out more for essential items. A host of goods and services are all set to become costlier with the new GST rates coming into effect from today. Everyday items like rice, wheat, packaged curd, etc. are costlier now, as 5% GST will be levied on them. Not just food items, hospital bills are all set to get expensive, and so is travel, with hotel bills on which GST is going to be levied as well. 12% GST will be charged on solar water heater, hotel accommodation and maps and charts. 18% GST will be applicable on printing, writing, drawing ink, knives with cutting blades, paper knives, pencil sharpeners, LED lamps, drawing and marking out instruments. With the Aam Aadmi feeling the pinch, the opposition raised the issue in Parliament. Rajya Sabha proceedings were adjourned for the day after disruption by Congress MPs over issues of price rise and GST. Now, while the opposition is pointing fingers at the centre for being apathetic to Aam Aadmi's pain, BJP says the decision is not unilateral, highlighting the fact that GST Council meeting is also attended by finance ministers of the states, including those that are governed by the opposition parties.
सावन के पहले सोमवार पे सरकार ने आज बहुत बड़ी गिफ्ट दी है हम सबको। तो एक तरफ तो जो इन्फ्लेशन है इकोनॉमी में वो 7% से लगातार ज्यादा है, रिटेल इन्फ्लेशन, बेरोजगारी की दर 7.8% पर बनी हुई है, रुपया 80 को टच कर रहा है, और इन सब का समाधान मोदी सरकार ने सोचा है कि आटे पर जीएसटी लगाओ 5%। इन सब का समाधान ये है कि शहद पर जीएसटी लगाओ 5%। इन सब का समाधान ये है कि मच्छी पर और मांस पर जीएसटी लगाओ 5%।
सुबह से देख रहे हैं जिस तरह से ऑपोजिशन लोगों को गुमराह करने के लिए एक साजिश कर रहा है। जीएसटी में आपके रिप्रेजेंटेटिव होते हैं, ऑपोजिशन के फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर होते हैं, सारे फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर वहां पर रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं अपने अपने स्टेट्स को, और पूरे चर्चा के बाद उसको डिसीजन लिया जाता है कि अंदर में वो पूरे तौर से सहमति के साथ सहमत रहते हैं इस डिसीजन में, वो चर्चा करते हैं और पास करते हैं, लेकिन बाहर में आके वो राजनीति करते हैं। ऐसा बार बार देखा जा रहा है कि ऑपोजिशन, खासकर कांग्रेस पार्टी और कुछ और ऐसी दल हैं जो लोगों को गुमराह करने की कोशिश करते हैं। जनता जानती है सच्चाई, जनता हकीकत जानती है कि पहले भी वैट था, वैट लगता था इस पे, और आज कोई नई चीज नहीं हुई है, इसलिए इस तरह के स्टंट उनको ही बैकफायर करेंगे।
Of course, every party is a part of the GST Council, but ultimately the government is the one who is to take the decision, right? Did any party in the thing tell to raise the taxes? Where are the proceedings for that? The government is the one who has to take the thing. Of course, suggestions will be given by each and every party. But this kind of tax terrorism, this kind of surgical strike on the middle class and the poor people is definitely not a welcome move by the government.
Decision taken by the GST Council has endorsement of each and every state. Every state's vote value is the same. Therefore, this decision has been taken in consultation with all Congress-ruled states. Now, if Rahul Gandhi is not aware of the process, maybe he should educate himself. Also, this GST will allow for manufacturers and service providers to claim input credit, which will actually help bring down the prices of the commodities.
So you heard the opposition. The opposition is calling it tax terrorism and an surgical strike on the Aam Aadmi. On the other hand, the BJP says GST Council has representation from all the states, including the opposition states as well. The big question is, anybody thinking about the Aam Aadmi? Let's open this up and go across to our guests. We're joined by Dr. Sanju Verma from the BJP. We have Rajat Sethi, author and economist. Karan Bhasin, also an economist on the panel. Saad Shirwani, Samajwadi Party leader. We also have Syed Faisal Ali from the RJD. Good evening to all of you. Sanju Verma, of course, the first question is to you, given all the reactions that have come in from the opposition and also the fact that the food inflation rose to 7.3% on average from February to April 2020. I'm just citing some data. Cooking gas shot up 15%. Retail prices are also increasing. Was this really necessary at this point of time? The timing of it is being questioned.
You know, Swati, this is a very important issue, and I will just highlight a couple of quick points for the benefit of your audience. First and foremost, the decision to, bring a 5% GST on pre-packaged and labeled food products, including labeled atta, labeled paneer, labeled pulses, labeled vegetables, labeled curd. That was taken by the 47th GST Council on the recommendation of the group of ministers. And group of ministers was, represented by 7 states: Karnataka, Bihar, Goa, and Uttar Pradesh. I agree, are BJP or BJP alliance-ruled states. Bihar, for instance, JDU and the BJP. But there were 3 states in the group of ministers which are not BJP-ruled: Kerala, Rajasthan, and West Bengal. So out of 7 states, there were 3 non-BJP-ruled states which gave the go-ahead to bring GST at 5% on pre-packaged and labeled food products. That is point number 1. Point number 2, if we have to, ask the question, was the timing right? One important thing which I need to tell your audience is this, that branded atta, branded food products, be it paneer, branded tea, branded coffee, branded milk, this was always, even till about 1 month, 2 months, or 5 months back, the GST rate was either 0% or 5% largely. So what has changed now? All the government is saying is that instead of branded food products in unit containers, pre-packaged and labeled products will attract 5% GST. So it is nothing new. there is a slight tweak in the modality.
Are you saying the slight
quickly,
tweak in the modality is not going to burden the Aam Aadmi?
May I please finish, Swati?
Is this, I'm just asking you a follow-up question because you are putting out a lot of data. I'm asking you a follow-up question. Is this modality, is this slight tweak not going to burden the Aam Aadmi?
Yes, I'm coming to that. The slight tweak will not burden the Aam Aadmi Party because the reason for tweaking this was to rationalize the tax structure and make corrections in the inverted duty structure, which in simple layman terms means that now people who were earlier not eligible to get input tax credit will be eligible for input tax credit, and actually the net impact of this 5% rise on the end customer, on the end user, Swati, be it you, me or Karan Bhasin, will be virtually nothing. And one very important point I want to make, because I got this data specifically for your show, there are 1,214 items of mass consumption, and I challenge anybody on this panel to say that I am giving out wrong data. 1186 items, Swati. Out of 1214, 1186 items, that is 98% items of mass consumption are taxed at less than 12%. Earlier, the tax rate prior to GST coming into force was 18.9%.
So you are happy with 5% tax on atta, flour.
All right.
And the curd.
All right. So let's take that across to our guests also. As far as the group of ministers reference that you gave, Sanju Verma, so just 3 states, 3 non-BJP ruled states, but on top of everything, the vote of the central government has a weightage of 1/3 of the total votes cast. We also have Tehseen Poonawalla now on the broadcast. I want to bring in Syed Faisal Ali. Syed Faisal Ali, the government's argument or Sanju Verma's argument is that this slight tweak is not going to, burden the pockets of the Aam Aadmi. In fact, virtually it will be nothing compared to what has been happening. 1. 2, GST Council has representation from all the states. So why didn't members of the opposition parties oppose it right then and there? Now why is everybody talking to the media and criticizing the government?
Swati, first of all, I would like to say that whenever this government takes any decision, there is a lot of confusion and a lot of hue and cry, because this government imposes decision. There is no consultation process, no participation process. Simply they come up with some decision and they announce it. What they have done this time that जीना तो हो ही गया है मुश्किल, मरना भी मुश्किल हो गया है. Even the cost of cremation has been increased. So just see how insensitive this government is. If I quote the BJP MP Varun Gandhi, who says that जब राहत देने की बारी आई तो लोगों को आहत किया जा रहा है. It's not Faisal Ali who is saying this. It's Varun Gandhi, the leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party, has said.
The question is, अगर ये गवर्नमेंट कोई भी डिसीजन ले रही है, ठीक है, गवर्नमेंट कोई भी डिसीजन ले रही है, आप कह रहे हैं कि राहत देने की बजाय आहत पहुंचा रही है, ठेस पहुंचा रही है लोगों को, कि काउंसिल मीटिंग में क्या ये मुद्दे उठे थे, क्या उसमें
मैं नहीं कह रहा हूं, वरुण गांधी कह रहे हैं. नहीं,
ठीक है, ऑपोजिशन पार्टी होने के नाते
किया गया था,
ऑपोजिशन पार्टी होने के नाते मेरा सवाल ये,
you know the process, you know the procedure of the GST Council. The 1/3 weightage of the central government vote is there.
I just mentioned that.
Whatever is decided in the council, 1/3 weightage is there with the. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yes.
So the ball is always in the court of the center, and it is center's writ which runs. So she cannot say that the state governments were also involved in the decision-making process. It is just an eyewash.
Okay, just an eyewash. So let me bring in the economists as well.
This government has no fear.
Okay.
And
just an eyewash. The representation you're saying.
Because they don't want.
You're saying the representation as far as the states are concerned is just an eyewash, or उस तरह के opposition का कोई मतलब भी नहीं है. I want to bring in the economists, the experts now into the debate.
Certainly.
Karan Bhasin,
they are bulldozing these decisions.
Okay, bulldozing the decision. Karan Bhasin, of course the economy is recovering from the jolt of the pandemic. 1, the tourism industry is also only reviving. It has just started. Wouldn't this taxing of the hotels, the increase, impact the tourism industry? 1. Is this not going to be counterproductive as far as recovery of the economy is concerned?
Not at all, because I don't know about others, but I worked on the issue of GST for about 1.5 years into 2020. We looked at the overall structure, and I can tell you the structure that was there in GST, despite a lot of efforts by the GST Council, was really difficult for any business, MSME, etc., because of a lot of the exemptions that state governments wanted, in particular for their respective industries in their states. Now, by reducing the number of exemptions, what this decision does is that it ensures that the benefit of input tax credit can be claimed by a larger mass of businesses, which I think is more important for SMEs. If you talk to any MSME manufacturer, he can tell you that the ability to claim input tax credit has a far more positive impact on their day-to-day finances and day-to-day operations rather than being exempt from that category. And as far as burden is concerned, the burden on people will be determined on the basis of whether this is a revenue positive, revenue negative, or a revenue neutral decision by the GST Council. And in this particular case, this is a revenue neutral decision, which means that it levies no additional burden on anyone, be it anyone in the tourism sector, be it anyone in the atta manufacturing sector, or even atta consumer. Since it's a revenue neutral,
just for the Aam Aadmi to understand in the common man's term, you're saying this is revenue neutral, and the hike that we are talking about in terms of percentage will have no impact?
No impact, because the input tax credit that will be claimed by the manufacturer ensures that essentially prices at the retail level remain unchanged. That is the very nature of if you look at the GST taxation structure, why is GST different from the erstwhile structure? Earlier we had excise and VAT, and you could not claim a benefit of excise while adjusting your VAT rates. GST solved that problem. Now when you have exemptions, when you pay a tax on inputs, you don't get any input tax credit on that. So for instance, if I'm claiming any service, any packaging service, and I'm paying any GST on it, I don't get any input if I'm not paying any GST, if the final end consumer is not paying any GST. Now when I bring it at a 5% rate or at a 12% rate and so on and so forth, I get benefit of the tax that I've already paid. It reduces my overall cost.
It's a revenue neutral decision. Revenue neutral decision is not going to impact either the industries or the Aam Aadmi. Virtually no impact.
Swati, the problem with me is, thank you for having me on the show, the problem with me is I don't study in the WhatsApp university. I'm a practicing entrepreneur and a practicing political analyst, so my studies is based on practicality and reality. So let me explain to you the Modi government's philosophy in one line. GST diamonds is 1.5%, GST on hospital rooms is 5%, GST on rice and curds is 5%, and coconut water is 12%. This explains Modi ji in one line. Spare the rich, tax the poor. In a country where India has fallen on the hunger rating, doesn't say me, it's a Times of India report, unless somebody thinks Times of India is WhatsApp university, where India's hunger rating has fallen, there they are putting GST on food. This is Modi government 2.0, where Mr. Modi goes on saying cow is our mother, he should, there GST comes on milk products. That is Mr. Modi in 2 lines. 2 years ago, I was live on Times Now, live, when Mr. Modi was speaking at another TV channel's conference, where Mr. Modi claimed that since his coming to power and getting the GST regime, taxes have been removed on rice, on curd, on all these items, which all he sneaked in correctly. And for years, we've been telling the Modi government that please bring petrol under GST. There they don't want to bring petrol under GST because there the government's making lakhs and lakhs and lakhs, 20 lakh crore plus Mr. Modi's made, building himself a new bungalow and aeroplanes. So in one line for your viewers again,
you're saying the Modi government at this point of time has adopted the policy of spare the rich and tax the poor. That is your take. Okay, your take is spare the rich, tax the poor. Okay, let me bring in Sanju Verma. Sanju Verma, Nirmala Sitharaman told the press that there was no opposition to the rate increase from any state. Rajasthan Minister Shanti Kumar Dhariwal said that the opposition did oppose the proposed rate hike on various consumer items because they believe it has an inflationary impact. And Mr. Ali says that the opposition's views have been bulldozed.
You know, Swati, first and foremost, I would like to say that, Karan actually explained it very well. So I will repeat for the benefit of your audience. Tomorrow, if you, Swati, or me as a customer, we go to an ordinary kirana shop and we say, Bhaiya, 1 kg moong dal dena ya 2 kg chawal dena, you will be charged 0% GST. But suppose we order rice or wheat or paneer, say online via Big Basket. and it comes pre-packaged with a big basket label, then there will be 5% GST. But because big basket gets an input tax credit, net, even I will not end up paying anything more to big basket than I would be paying to my local kirana wala. So that is GST explained simply. I will just quickly tell you one thing, Swati, because there's been a lot of allegation about WhatsApp University, this and that.
This is how the demonetization was also explained. Ma'am, this is how the demonetization was also explained.
Swati, can I please take
Yes, Sanju, I'll come back to you. Now, you have countered Tehseen Poonawalla. You have countered Tehseen Poonawalla.
You cannot go on and on and on.
I want to bring in other speakers. I want to bring in other speakers as well.
This is the same government.
Saad Sherwani, so who is being taxed? Who is being taxed? If you go to Sanju Verma says, आप local kirana shop में चले जाइए या big basket से order कर लीजिए, कोई difference नहीं होने वाला है. There is going to be no difference. So who is being taxed? Why have we increased the taxes? ये किसके ऊपर impact हो रहा है? Who is getting impacted?
Swati, I want to make one very quick point.
Sanju Verma, I'll come to you.
In 2019, when the Prime Minister was, let me please speak. In 2019, when the Prime Minister was attempting to get re-elected, he came on various TV shows. He made these tall speeches about how all of these commodities that used to be taxed in the past, now after implementation of GST, are tax-free. And TK agreed there was a big election around the corner, so these type of promises had to be made. Now all of a sudden there's a complete U-turn, as Tehseen had said, that he had come earlier and made these tall claims. And now, because there are no elections around the corner, nothing is happening, so all of a sudden these things are being taxed, and the poor man is the one who has to pay the burden. Now, the government is trying to pass its fiscal deficit burden onto the citizens, which is something that is absolutely wrong. All these commodities which they claimed were taxed earlier were not taxed after GST, and now all of a sudden are being taxed again. What the exact modalities are and what the exact calculations are and what WhatsApp University, etc. says, I mean, I'm not going to get into all of that, but there were tall promises that were being made about asset monetization, again, when the elections were around the corner, none of which has really come to pass. I mean, for example, take someone had mentioned the price of crude and how petrol is being taxed and how lakhs of crores are being made. I mean, when crude was at $30 a barrel, why were reserves not put in place then? I mean, we are a net importer of oil. Why were these decisions not taken at that point of time?
Okay,
you're taxing the common man, you're taxing the poor,
because we've also opened up phone lines, and we have a lot of calls coming in. Our viewers also want to either ask questions or express their concerns or share their suggestions and views with us. We have Nagesh joining us from Hyderabad and Bhargav from Bengaluru. I first want to go across to Nagesh. Good evening to you, Nagesh. Go ahead. What do you have to say?
Yeah, good evening, madam. I just wanted to ask, sir, this Tehseen Poonawalla is political, but he seems to be Congress side person who is just laughing. Right. The thing is very simple, madam. We have come out of the corona, every industry is struggling. And government is also struggling. And it is very common that everything has to comes under the tax benefit. That's it. Tax has to be imposed. It's mandatory if government has to run. Second line is all these products once upon a time was sold in openly. Now this is packed and processed. If you go to US, Singapore, Canada, everywhere, if packed good is there, the taxes will be applicable. So it has to be applicable. What's wrong in that?
Okay. You're saying there's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with, yes, okay. Thank you very much for sharing your views with us, Mr. Nagesh, a viewer who believes that there's nothing wrong with the tax that has been levied. Let's go across to Bhargav now. Bhargav, go ahead, please. Good evening.
See, I think if the government is going away from subsidy Raj and all, that's a great thing which has happened in the last few years. But taxing essentials, I think is very taxing for the common man. So I think the government should look at it again.
Okay, one viewer feels it's justified. Another viewer, Bhargav, feels that the government should take a relook. Government should rethink on this decision. I want to now bring in Rajat Sethi. We've heard some technical words. We've heard some big words like revenue neutral, input credit, and how the government at this point of time through the taxing also will not be burning holes into the pockets of the Aam Aadmi. What does this really mean for the Aam Aadmi? In simple terms, if you could help our viewers also understand, because you heard both views.
So Swati, let me break it down for your audience. One thing that is good about India is that no matter how much shrill our politics is, our policy making, which happens away from the din of politics, is done in a very sane environment. You know, this is why structures like the GST Council operate and operate so well. Let me tell you, there was a rationale behind why, this Legal Metrology Act of 2009 had certain flaws, and this current GST inclusion on certain items covers that flaw. Certain companies that were trying to sell labeled goods were not paying the 5% GST because there was some confusion as to what is pre-packaging and what is post-packaging. There was confusions, and because of the non-clarity as to what the law of the land said, a lot of these corporations who were trying to sell pre-packaged goods, bundling 10 kg packets into multiple such packages and trying to claim that GST of 5% is not applicable to them. There were certain certain GST tax evasions which were happening using these confusions that were there in the law. What has happened effectively through this is the Government of India, along with all these state government representatives, have tried to cover that flaw so that there is no leakage of taxation over there. And let me tell you to Tehseen ji also, what Tehseen was saying, that it is taxing the poor and like saving money for the rich, is actually the other way around. Packaged goods, packaged cereals, packaged rice are actually bought by the more affluent class, not by the poorer section.
Even the middle class, even the middle class buys it. Even the middle class buys it.
The government through various outlets.
It's not just the affluent class, even the middle class buys it.
Certainly. See, middle class, it's a burden on middle class.
Absolutely.
I understand it's a burden on middle class, but please understand that the bulk of these brands which were doing correct practices in GST are not going to be burdened because they were anyway levying 5% tax on them. Going on the hospital thing also, which you haven't discussed. This is being branded that hospital beds have become more expensive. But look at the fine print. It says that only those hospital beds which are charging greater than 5,000 rupees a night.
But what is the current rate? How much are the private hospitals charging? How much are the private hospitals charging? We need to look at the current situation as well. Before we get into justifying it, we need to look at how much these private hospitals are charging.
Go and check with the hospitals.
Wouldn't it also discourage people to choose cheaper hotels over quality service?
Please don't be so insensitive.
Let me come in here.
Okay, before we take more comments, I have viewers continuously calling. Because ultimately it is going to impact the Aam Aadmi. It's very important today to hear what our viewers have to say. We have Amrinder joining us from the national capital itself. Amrinder, good evening to you. Go ahead.
Good evening, madam. Madam, I can speak in Hindi?
बिल्कुल आप बोल सकते हैं सर.
हाँ, मैडम देखिए, ये गवर्नमेंट जो है मिडिल क्लास आम आदमी को क्रश कर रही है. जहाँ इनको फायदा होता है जीएसटी में, उसमें लगा देते हैं. अगर ये जीएसटी में लगाना चाहते हैं तो फिर जीएसटी पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट भी ले आए ना. ये जहाँ इनको फायदा दिखता है वही करे और हम क्रश हो रहे हैं. एक साइड ये लोअर इनकम को फ्री सब कुछ बांटते हैं, वोट बैंक पॉलिटिक्स. तो हायर को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, आम आदमी को फर्क पड़ता है.
मिडिल क्लास आप कह रहे हैं, मिडिल क्लास की कमर टूट रही है. ठीक है, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया अमरिंदर जी. वी हैव राजीव जॉइनिंग अस फ्रॉम फरीदाबाद. गुड इवनिंग राजीव, गो अहेड. व्हाट आर योर व्यूज?
Hi, Swati, my name is Rajiv, calling from Faridabad. So basically, I'm not getting into the technicalities of the GST as such, which the economists on the panel have already explained. My take is very simple, Swati. If the country has to grow, and if a certain impact has to be borne by the citizen of this country, they should not be cribbing about it. In return, the government of India is giving us a lot of facilities in terms of roads, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the development. So if we have to pay a very minuscule amount to meet these expenses, I don't think there should be any cribbing by anyone on the back.
Okay, all right. You think in wake of the facilities that the government is providing, this what we are paying in terms of taxes or the revision in the GST rate is minuscule. Thank you very much, Rajiv. Now let's go back to our guest, to Sanju Verma. Sanju Verma, Amrinder Singh is saying government को जहाँ पर फायदा होता है वो अपना फायदा कर लेती है, पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स को नहीं ला रही है, बाकी मिडिल क्लास की कमर तोड़ रही है. How would you respond?
I think that's a very important question, and with folded hands, very humbly, I will take 30 seconds to say what this government has done, Swati, for the middle class. The basic exemption limit in income tax has been raised from 2.5 to 3 lakhs per annum. Earlier, people who were earning up to 5 lakhs used to pay 10% tax. Now that is 5%. Also, the 80C benefits, basically interest on the home loan that you've taken. 1.5 lakhs. Now the tax deduction you get, Swati, is 2 lakhs per annum. The home rent allowance, HRA, which you get now is 50% of your basic pay, which was not the case earlier. And Swati, last year, for government employees, as per 7th Pay Commission, the DNS allowance was hiked from 17% to 28%. और मोदी सरकार के आने के बाद जब आप रेस्टोरेंट में अभी खाने जाते हो, पहले you used to pay 28% indirect service tax. Now that is 5%.
एक तो 30 seconds हो गए. नहीं, आपने 30 seconds मांगे थे संजू वर्मा. I have viewers also continuously calling. I have to go across to Radhakrishnan, a viewer joining us from Pollachi. Mr. Radhakrishnan, if you can hear me, good evening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, madam. What I'm saying is that all these politicians sitting there, let them give the amount of money that leaders have spent in incurring medical expenses abroad. Why they go to abroad? Why don't they save the money for the common man? Now they are talking about the common man. But they go to hospitals in America and London and whatnot.
Okay.
So how the government will give unless we get to collect money from these taxes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Radhakrishnan. We have Umesh joining us from Mumbai now. Umesh, good evening to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. See, my thing is that healthcare should be made more affordable. Here you are charging, yet what is the 5,000 rupees a bed? It is just nothing. The common hospitals are charging.
Yes.
So they should make it more affordable. The way the government is going, I think after some time, middle class will have to go and take a ration card also and to get a 5 kg free ration.
Thank you very much, Umesh, for sharing your views with us. I want to go back to our guests. Syed Faisal Ali, this is actually a point that I was making earlier. Wouldn't this discourage people, in choosing cheaper hospitals over quality service? Healthcare should be made affordable, says Umesh, our viewer from Mumbai.
Certainly, Swati, certainly healthcare should be more affordable and more comfortable for people and people coming from the remote areas. What is happening? People are coming from remote areas to Delhi, Bombay and other cities because those remote areas lack basic medical facilities. This is the reality of India. And this government in last 8 years has done nothing. They have reduced the health care budget. Secondly, one gentleman was hailing and praising the GST step. I would like to remind that GST has failed on 2 counts. First, it has widened the rift between the centre and the state government. Secondly, it has failed to correct the rates, the tax rates. So, on these 2 major counts, the GST has failed.
Okay.
Like all other steps of the government, the GST has also failed.
Right. Swati, hold on. Let me ask a follow-up question to all the 3 politicians who are opposing the move. Please tell me how many line items are there in GST and how many applicable tax rates are there in GST. You answer these 2 questions and then you comment on GST. Taxation is a very technical issue. It's a very technical issue. You're making all kinds of statements without having any idea of what the taxation structure is. There are total 9 tax rates at present, and there are total 19 items with major duty imposition issues.
We know.
And as far as hospital, no, you don't know. You don't know.
We know that.
You're saying what you're saying.
The general public, gentlemen, we know.
Listen to me. No, you don't know. If you know, you don't know. The problem is you don't know.
You cannot go like this. Yes, we know.
Okay, you are talking about you asked him a question.
Talking about the nuances. You are talking about the nuances of the tax structure. Come to the basic structure of the taxes. The people of India, where the literacy rate is so, you cannot evade behind, you cannot hide yourself behind the jugglery of figures and data.
How many line items are there in consumption items? How many line items? Tell me how many line items. Give me a number. Give me a number. Give me a number. No. Give me a number. Give me a number. No. Give me a number. It's a very specific issue. How many line items of commodities are there?
Are you debating about?
How many line items are there of commodities? How many? Certainly, क्या आप नंबर बताइए ना कितने line items हैं? कितने हैं? 9 items. How many line items are there? How many line items are there in consumption? How many line items are there in consumption? How many line items are in consumption? How many line items are there in consumption? How many line items are there in consumption? How many line items are there in GST? How many line items are there in GST?
Is it for rich and privileged one, or it is for poor?
Okay. I want to go across to another viewer. It's very important. important that we get enough time and make our points very clearly, because it's a very, very important and a technical issue, and the viewer needs to understand every aspect. Prakash is joining us from Hyderabad. Prakash, good evening. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. I understand the hike of GST, with such a long COVID, impact on economy. And similarly, we have this war continuously going on. And my problem is, while you have so much of thing, the opposition parties are absolutely, what you call cruel to, not support the government at this hour. However, a few things, very basic necessities are also being taxed very high. Those can be probably, taken back a little and do a kind of, economic justice to the, middle and lower classes. Like, people who travel on work, they are now taxed about 12% more. Unnecessary things, those are, their lives get a little tougher. So there are a few things like that on food items as well. So just bring down the prices a little on that side.
Just bring down the prices a little. Very balanced and nuanced stand taken by Prakash. There we have Anindya joining us from Kolkata. Anindya, good evening. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I am Anindya calling from Kolkata. I have a question. I head an MSME company. So suppose if I have to bill a certain client, so my mandate is in that month I have to file my GST amount, which I am billing to the client. But the problem is the client at the same time is not liable to pay in that month the GST amount and the bill amount. So if the client is not paying the bill, paying that bill amount in that month, but so he is not liable to pay. But I am liable to pay the GST amount in that month in my GST portal. So the entire responsibility as a vendor is on me, but the client is not liable to pay on that month. So what the government is doing for the MSME companies, so client will pay at the third month of, maybe on the second month or third month of my billing date, and the input he will get, but the entire loss is on me. Then I am liable to pay for my client on that month.
Very specific question. I think
entire fallacy.
Okay,
So there is no
Sanju
room
Verma
for the
wants to
government
respond.
Ensure the client also pays in that month. But I am paying the GST for my client.
Okay. All right. Stay online. Stay online, Anindya. Yes, Sanju Verma.
I think, Anindya, that's a very important question. I want to tell you that there is a specific provision that the Modi government has introduced. It is called TREDS, T-R-E-D-S, Trade Receivables Discounting System. There is a time lag between the amount of money that you have to receive from your customer, but you already made an expense upfront. So you have money upfront, but it takes time for you to get back the amount that you have spent, get back your profit. So TREDS is a platform. It's an institutional mechanism where you can get the facility of discounting your cash flows, your receivables. So you are actually getting institutional support from the government in terms of financing your future cash receivables, so that you do not face any problems in between the time lag of spending and actually getting money from your customer. Please use the TREDS platform. It is exactly meant for people like you.
Okay, that was very informative. Very informative. Specific question answered by Sanju Verma. Now I want to go back to our guest. What I believe Karan Bhasin was emphasizing on while he kept asking those questions to Syed Faisal Ali Tehseen Poonawala is that people don't have an understanding of the basic structure of GST. And there's a lot of fear-mongering that is happening, misinformation that is doing the rounds, and it ends up misleading the people. How do you respond?
Minister said hard work pays more than Harvard, and this is exactly what we're seeing on this debate. I think the Honorable Prime Minister, who promised demonetization would be a game changer, we know after that the economy contracted. So I really think we should stay out of WhatsApp and stick to GST, which is the topic of the day. Now, I mean, I can also come here and show off 1,300 goods in GST, 500 services in the broadly in the 4 sectors, the other GST rates are etc. etc. And please, on the broadly 4 structures, on the broadly 4 structures, please keep quiet and allow somebody else to speak. Have some respect on the show. There are 9 structures or broadly 4 structures. Swati, if you can
Okay,
stop
1 second, please. Let Tehseen Poonawala finish his point.
Swati, I very specifically said 1300 and 500 broadly 4 structures and total 9 structures. I very specifically said, but they will interrupt. Now the entire Swati, I cannot talk. I will keep quiet. When they finish,
No, go ahead, Tehseen, go ahead.
We don't interrupt when Karan and
go ahead.
Speak. They purposefully do it so the viewers can't hear. Look, the fact is exactly what Karan said. 9 GST rates. That does not make it a simple tax. That makes it an extremely 9 times complicated tax. And I'll explain to you what makes it a 9 times complicated tax. You buy wheat like this, no tax. You buy wheat from big basket, 5% tax. You buy wheat from somewhere else, it will attract some other tax. They have complicated the structure so badly. When the wizard Manmohan Singh ji proposed GST, he proposed 2 tax rates, 2 simple tax rates. Everything comes in 2 structures. By making it 9, which Karan himself says, they've complicated it. Now let me expose their lies one in 2 minutes. The CPI basket inflation, the CPI inflation rate is hovering around 7%. Any price increase is going to lead to increase in prices, but it's going to break your purchasing power lower. The CPI basket has not been updated since 2011, 2012. For example, even today, the CPI basket on wholesale inflation has cow dung on it, but it does not have electric cars. But they are charging electric cars GST. Now the fact of the matter is, when you charge electric cars in GST, your inflation is going up. Hotels, the weightage is much lower than the amount of hotels have gone up. It's 0.0094.
Again, you're raising some very technical points and specific points. I want Rajat Sethi to come in.
Who does that?
Okay, Rajat Sethi, Tehseen Poonawala says GST was supposed to streamline and simplify things. The government is complicating things, and this is ultimately going to impact the purchasing power of the Aam Aadmi.
See, this is where I sort of agree with Tehseen. I think what we need to have is essentially 2 to 3 GST rates, one for luxury items, one for the average set of commodities, etc., and 0% which should be for all the essentials which cater specifically to the poorer section of the society. But that convergence takes time. That convergence essentially requires government to take baby steps forward so that there is broader consensus among the states, because you can't trample upon the federal structure that way. I can give you so many examples. Fermented fish, for example, coming out of Manipur, was to be brought under GST. Normal fish was not to be brought in. All these states were fighting that canned fish as a commodity be taxed at 3 levels. In certain cases it is 0%, in certain cases, in fermented fish, by the way, is 5%, in processed fish it is 12%. And each of the 3 states were fighting tooth and nail to keep those GST rates as low as possible. So, as simple a commodity like this has 3 tax rates. It's because none of the states were budging down on that.
Okay,
and
you're putting the ball in the state's court, so I think Saad Sherwani should respond. The states were not cooperating.
Yes, and that's how.
And time and again, that has been the argument. Saad Sherwani.
See, what states were cooperating or not cooperating, I'm not the best person to comment on that. All I can say is that in times like now, when there's joblessness, there's inflation is at an all-time high, so many jobs were promised at the time of elections, those criteria are not even met in the remotest sense. This is not the time for more confusion, and this is not the time to increase levels of taxation. This is the time to help the common man and help the people who have brought you into power, who have put you in government. That is not what this government is doing. This has not been this government's agenda for a very long time. There are different promises during elections, and there are different promises when elections are not around the corner. So who's cooperating, who's not cooperating is not, I will not be the best person to answer that. I admit that right off the hat. But what I'm saying is that in times like now, the government should be helping the citizens.
Okay, in times like now, when there's unemployment, there's joblessness, there's inflation, I just have a couple of seconds to wrap up the debate. Sanju Verma, last word to you. Can you assure people, reassure people that this revision in rates and hikes, like you've been saying, is going to have no impact on the Aam Aadmi, on the middle class?
Swati, I quickly just want to say one thing. There's been a discussion on revenue neutral rate. Revenue neutral rate basically means that the flows to the government, even if it changes the tax rate, will remain the same. I also want to say that when we introduced GST, the entire taken into confidence and we had decided revenue neutral rate going forward in the next 5 or 6 years will be 15.5%. Do you know what the revenue neutral rate in India is today? 11.6%. That means on an average, the government is charging far lower than what it had even envisaged way back in July 2017 when GST was introduced. And my answer to Tehsil Poonawala, you keep talking about inflation. Average inflation in last 8 years under the Modi government.
Okay, you know, I have to wrap up. I have to wrap up. The government says GST Council has representation from every state and nobody objected. Everybody was on board. The opposition says that their voices have been bulldozed. But ultimately, I think people will judge when they actually have to go to the local store or order from a big basket or other big players in the market. If they have to shell more money, people will judge on the basis of that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Saad Sherwani will continue with us for debate number 2. Thank you very much to the rest of our guests for joining us with your views. We're moving on now. Let's shift our focus to Uttar Pradesh. Now, Uttar Pradesh government's proposal to regulate admission in madrasas has sparked a political showdown. Yogi government is all set to constitute a committee to fix the minimum age for admission in madrasas, which will follow on the lines of various education boards like the CBSE and the ICSE. The government says that the move will reform the madrasas, which will add quality to education. Listen in.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी की मंशा स्पष्ट है, चाहे मदरसे के अंदर पढ़ने वाले बच्चे हों और चाहे किसी अन्य विद्यालयों में पढ़ने वाले बच्चे हों, वह पढ़े, आगे बढ़े, वह देश की सेवा करे, देश प्रदेश को आगे बढ़ाने में योगदान करे, ऐसी हमारी अपेक्षा है। उसके लिए जो संसाधन सरकार के पास है, पूरी जिम्मेदारी से उसके लिए उपयोग किया जाए।
देखिए, मदरसा शिक्षा हमारे मुस्लिम समाज के युवाओं के लिए, बच्चों के लिए एक बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण अंग है मदरसा शिक्षा। इस मदरसा शिक्षा को हम प्रॉपर वे में स्टैब्लिश कर रहे हैं ताकि एक अच्छी क्वालिटी ऑफ एजुकेशन हम अपने मुस्लिम यूथ को दें। इसी दिशा में लगातार हमारी सरकार सकारात्मक कदम उठा रही है।
But the proposal hasn't gone down well with the opposition. Samajwadi Party and the AIUDF pounced on Yogi Sarkar, terming the proposal, this move, as an all-out assault on the madrasas. They say the decision is similar to that of Hitler's. Listen.
मदरसों में इस तरह का कानून बनाना ये ठीक नहीं है। ये अल्पसंख्यकों को शिक्षा से वंचित करने का प्रयास है और सरकार की साजिश जो है इसीलिए है कि जो अल्पसंख्यक वर्ग के, पिछड़े वर्ग के बच्चे हैं जो स्कूल पढ़ने जा नहीं पाते हैं, उनके माता पिता नौकरी करते हैं, कहीं कुछ कमाते हैं, तब बच्चों को पढ़ाते हैं। ऐसे बच्चों को कोई कानून के दायरे में बांधना उचित नहीं।
देखिए, मदरसा को पूरी बीजेपी सरकार टारगेट कर रहा है। यूपी में, आसाम में, कई स्टेट में टारगेट कर रहे हैं। हालांकि इनको ये राइट नहीं बनता है, तो इस सरकार को इख्तियार नहीं है कि किस एज के बच्चे वहाँ जाएंगे। एजुकेशन के साथ कोई एज बार नहीं है। ये सब हिटलरी है इनकी और ये सब खामाखा की बात है। असल मुद्दों से लोगों को ध्यान भटकाने के लिए ये सब किया जा रहा है।
All right, let's open this up. Let's go across to our guests. We are joined by Shantanu Gupta, an author. We have Feroz Bakht Ahmed, former Chancellor of Manu, in the studio with us. Danish Qureshi, a political analyst, joins us on the panel, along with Saad Sherwani, national spokesperson Samajwadi Party. He continues to be with us. Good evening, gentlemen. My first question is to Danish Qureshi. कैसे ये हिटलर शाही हो गई? How is this against the entire community? Students are not being stopped from taking admissions in madrasas. Their families are not being stopped from sending children to madrasas. The government is saying we are regularizing the age criteria, which will be on the lines of the ICSE and the CBSE, which I believe the minimum is 4 years.
आई थिंक इन उत्तर प्रदेश 35% से ज़्यादा ड्रॉप आउट रेशियो है 8वीं कक्षा के बाद। उत्तर प्रदेश की सरकार को चाहिए, योगी की सरकार को चाहिए कि सबसे पहले वो उस पर फोकस करे जो मेन स्ट्रीम एजुकेशन सिस्टम है। उसमें जो ड्रॉप आउट रेशियो है वो आपके सामने है। इवन दैन दे वांट टू इंटरवीन इन मदरसा इन द नेम ऑफ द रिफॉर्मेशन एंड ऑल। व्हाट इज द इंटेंशन ऑफ द योगी गवर्नमेंट? दे हैज टू मेक क्लियर, वेरी क्लियर दैट हाउ दे विल गोइंग टू
What is the problem? What is the problem with reform?
Blueprint of that.
Danish ji, what is the problem with modernization and reforms when it comes to madrasas? Side by side, अगर मदरसों में जाने वाले बच्चों के बेहतर भविष्य के लिए भी सरकार कुछ कर रही है, what is the problem?
No, प्रॉब्लम इज ऑल अबाउट इंटेंशन, कंटेंट और इंटेंशन जो है वो क्लियर होना चाहिए।
इसमें क्या इंटेंशन आपको लगता है गलत हो सकता है?
तो रिफॉर्मेशन के नाम
एक मिनिमम एज क्राइटेरिया अगर तय कर दें कि इतने साल में आप चले जाएंगे, इसमें इंटेंशन कहां से गलत हो गया?
But what is the scientific reason of age 6? I want to know from you. When the school, you can get admission in the age of 5 years in modern education, why the age limit should be restricted as a 6 year in madrasas?
What is the scientific logic to that, says Danish Qureshi, Feroz Bakht Ahmed.
What is the scientific reason?
What is the scientific reason? क्यों आप इसको रिवाइज करना चाह रहे हैं? जैसा चल रहा है चलने दीजिए.
Now look here, Swati. I had my friend Mr. Danish Qureshi. He is asking what is the scientific reason. You know, each and every reason is scientific when we talk about the modernization of madrasas. This process actually was started by the first Minister of Education, Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. However, by certain people in the community, and even till date, I remember, you know, there used to be one Justice M.S.A. Siddiqui of NCMEI. He also tried to bring some reformation, in fact, modernization of madrasas by bringing, you know, subjects like math, science, geography, Hindi, all such subjects. However, there are some madrasas. Let me tell you, in Rajasthan, there is one place, Ramgarh, and their madrasa Jamiatul Hidayah has all these subjects, modern subjects. Let me tell you one thing. Once I broke my fast with the madrasa students. I told them why they break the fast with dates, the khajur. The reason is that it contains calcium, it contains many other important ingredients. The madrasa students found that very interesting. So the need of the hour is that these madrasas should be modernized, and there is no ill will in the, you know, as far as you know, Danish Sahab said that there is some ill will. What intention is there in Yogi ji's heart? You know, Yogi Adityanath is doing very well. Most of the Muslims in his state, they are happy with him, whether it is the loudspeaker system or whatever. So madrasas have to be modernized, and as they run on shoestring budget, I believe there should be some central madrasa system, education board. In fact, 6 states have this madrasa board, but there should be an all-India madrasa board, Swati.
This is not anti-minority according to you. This is not an assault on the madrasas.
No.
Okay, so I want to bring in...
And one more thing, just one second. Let me also clarify. मेरी बात पूरी नहीं हुई. दानिश एक सेकंड. Give me 2 seconds in the sideline. मेरी बात पूरी होने दे. दानिश भाई, छोटे भाई, सुनिए. Let me also clarify that there was some comment by a very senior you know, person, in fact the governor of Kerala, that madrasas, you know, they teach sartan se juda, all these things. There is nothing of that kind which is taught in madrasas. Whatever it is, if there is a central curriculum, nothing of that kind will be there. Madrasas are doing a human service to the cause of poor students
at par with others. We need reforms is your suggestion. Okay, yes. I want to bring in Saad Sherwani. Now, Saad Sherwani, the Minority Welfare Minister Dharampal Singh said that he had actually gone to distribute mobiles and tablets to meritorious students of high schools of madrasas. And what he saw was that many older men who were students at the madrasas had come to receive the award. I don't know whether scientific or not. Danish ji isko scientific manenge ki nahi. But if you complete your education in those madrasas at an appropriate time at par with other students, आपके पास बहुत वक्त रहता है, समय रहता है to go ahead with professional courses, to go ahead with competitive exams. फायदा ही होगा आपको इसका आगे.
Madrasa students have been toppers at IIT and IIS.
Yes.
Though very less, but they have been.
See. No, agreed. So Swati, I would just like to say that I am very much in favor of modernization of madrasas. I am very much in favor of giving an equal opportunity to the students who go to madrasas as the opportunities are given to children going in other schools. So right there, I'm very much in favor of that. The problem is that the policies of the Yogi government and the things that they have tried to do even in the past as far as the madrasas are concerned have not been very favorable.
मैं हर मुसलमान के एक हाथ में कुरान और एक में कंप्यूटर देखना चाहता हूँ, तो उसमें क्या आपको गलत नजर आ रहा है? This is what the policy
बिल्कुल वो मैं भी देखना चाहता हूँ.
Central government
मैं भी देखना चाहता हूँ. मैं तो चाहता हूँ वो कंप्यूटर पे कुरान पढ़ेंगे. That's not the point. The point is saying and doing. I mean, this government is very famous for making promises, again, when the elections are near, making promises is the forte of this government. But deliver.
It is
deliver. See, I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. Either you are not liking my line of argument, or you just want to debate with yourself one way or the other. I mean, you will have to give others a chance to speak.
No, go ahead.
So again, my point being that if these changes are for the positive and they will benefit the students, I don't think anyone will have a problem with it. Let there not be another agenda behind it, and let them deliver.
But can you identify the agenda?
A lot has been spoken about.
Given the decision,
this has been going on for a while. It's been about 6 years now.
No, Mr. Sherwani, let's
specifically talk about this particular incident. 5.5 years now that Yogi
Do you sense an
agenda?
Do you sense an agenda? If you sense an agenda, please speak very clearly and specifically about the agenda.
No. The agenda is very clear. You have made certain promises regarding madrasas, which are a topic of debate. There's no doubt about it.
I think that's a very generic.
Deliver on those promises.
Very generic statement.
And if you deliver on those promises, I'll be the first person to.
Quick response from.
मदरसे का बच्चा पूरा कुरान को बगैर ज़ेर और ज़बर के डिफरेंस के.
You've been talking about madrasas for the last 5.5 years
by heart. So this talent has to be tapped. Madrasa students, these children are very, very hardworking. They are very committed. So this should go in the right line. They should learn modern and secular education as well.
Along with it. Yes.
At which they are very good.
Yes, Shantanu Gupta.
See, I think all the panelists know that every state board, government board, CBSE, ICSE, IB, National Indian Open Schooling, they all have certain recommendations apart from curriculum. And age is one of the recommendations. At what age you learn what. And even the cognition theories and learning theories support that at what age you learn what. So if madrasas were not doing that, it was a mess for all along, and they are just regularizing it. And the interchangeability will become very simple. If you want to move from madrasa to school, mainstream education or mainstream education to madrasa, it will become very easy at par with any normalization. I don't know what's the debate around. I think that's the right.
No, but then what explains the UP government deciding to stop grants to new madrasas? If the government wants modernization, wants to help these students, what explains that decision is a question many are asking. Like Saad Sherwani was also pointing out. How do you respond?
Say that again.
I'm talking about the government's decision of stopping grants to new madrasas. What explains that?
I think that's a debate from quite some time, that a secular government, should really be supporting any kind of religious education or not. I think that debate is starting in Assam, it's starting with UP, and that should be a national debate. That our RSS, Shishu Mandirs are funded by government, not, right? So should the religious education will be funded by government or not? That's a national debate, and that we all should be having in all right spirit.
All right, that's all the time I have for debate number 2. The government says this is to improve the quality of education so that students pass out from the madrasas and are at par with students from other schools, from ICSE, CBSE board, so that they have enough time to go ahead with professional courses or other competitive exams, and they don't fall back. Whereas the opposition and many within the community believe this is an assault on the madrasas itself. Is it reform? Is it modernization? Or is it an assault? You've heard all sides. Decide for yourselves, viewers. Thank you very much, guests, for joining us.
देश का प्रतीक है ये, हर हिंदुस्तानी के नजदीक है ये, हर डर को भगा देता है, हर देशवासी के अंदर जोश जगा देता है. Today I am here at Kishtwar, and you can see the tricolor has been raised, and for this tricolor we have seen that how these brave hearts always try to ensure there is an unwritten commitment from their side that at any cost they will see this tricolor fluttering. For that even they are ready to take bullets on their body. For that they have even sacrificed their life. If today we are talking about peace and prosperity in Kashmir, it's only because of these brave hearts who had always been there for the people of the country, who had always been there for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. We have seen that few months back, some of the politicians said that after abrogation of Article 370, there will be hardly anyone to hold tricolour in their hand. But you can see that how a new chapter has been scripted, how things have really changed and winds of change have already started blowing. And you can find these youngsters proudly looking towards the tricolour, 100 feet high tricolour, which can be seen from any of the hillock surrounding this Kishtwar town. After Kashmir Valley, Jammu region, now it is the Kishtwar where we have got this tricolour fluttering high. And every Indian's chest swells with pride when they look at the tricolour, because they know it is not only about tricolour, it is also about the sacrifice of our soldier. It's all, if we see the tricolour fluttering, it is not because of the blowing wind, it is because of the supreme sacrifice of each and every soldier. Let's talk to the youngsters. कैसा लग रहा है जब आज आप ये तिरंगा लहराते हुए देख रहे हैं?
सर, ये हमारे लिए एक प्राउड मोमेंट है। आज हम बहुत खुश हैं कि हमारे किश्तवाड़ जिले में इतना अच्छा काम हो रहा है।
कितना जोश आ रहा है?
सर, बहुत ज़्यादा जोश आ रहा है। हमें खुशी हो रही है कि किश्तवाड़ में ऐसा पहली बार हो रहा है कि 100 फीट ऊपर एक तिरंगा लहरा रहा है एक ऐसे चौक पर, तो हमें बहुत ज़्यादा गर्व हो रहा है किश्तवाड़ पर भी।
आपके लिए कितना इंस्पायरिंग मोमेंट है?
सर, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, बहुत फील अच्छा आ रहा है,
गर्व फील हो रहा है, जोश आ रहा है
सर।
कोई जोश से भारत माता की जय करके कितना जोर से बोलेंगे?
भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की जय।
कितना गर्व फील कर रहे हैं आज आप?
सर, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, पहली बार ऐसा देखा कि किश्तवाड़ में फ्लैग बना।
Tears in her eyes narrate the whole story, because nobody had thought that this thing is going to really happen. But today, see how things have really changed. There's a lot of josh, there's a lot of enthusiasm among youngsters, and it's going to inspire millions of these youngsters when they will be looking at the tricolour. Definitely they will also be donning a uniform so that they can serve motherland India. It is the unwritten commitment of the soldiers that inspires each and every youngsters in the country. Unwritten commitment that at any cost they'll be serving country. Even for that, they have to sacrifice their life. They are ready to do that. It is because of their sacrifice today we can see this tricolour fluttering high, and the josh is also high here in Kishtwar town. Pradeep Datta with Amit Bhartwaj.
Let's now take a look at the top stories of the day.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has asserted that India is moving from being an importer of defence equipment to an exporter. PM claimed a 21% rise in the country's defence exports in the last 4 to 5 years. The Reserve Bank of India has recommended the government to frame regulations for cryptocurrencies and prohibit them. But the government thinks that a global collaboration is needed for any effective regulation or ban. Female students appearing for NEET at an examination centre in Kerala were asked to remove their innerwear. Kerala Higher Education Minister R. Bindu assured probe into the matter. Monkeypox case found in Kerala. The second case has been confirmed by the Union Health Ministry and National Centre for Disease Control. India adds 16,935 new COVID-19 infections and 51 deaths in the last 24 hours. The active cases increased and crossed the mark of 1 lakh in a single day.
The most pressing issues, the most informed minds, a free and fair exchange. Converse India with Rahul Shivshankar.
Draupadi Murmu is also a decent person, but she represents a very evil philosophy of India. Yashwant Sinha ji is also a very good candidate. Draupadi Murmu ji is also a decent person. But she represents a very evil philosophy of India. So we should not mistake Draupadi, we should not make Draupadi Murmu ji as a symbol of Adivasi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today our country's MLAs and members of parliament voted to elect the next president of India. The outcome of the fight between the NDA's Draupadi Murmu and opposition's Yashwant Sinha is all but certain. In fact, the writing is on the wall, and what perhaps has left Yashwant Sinha extremely rattled, because in his parting shot this morning, he alleged horse trading and misuse of central agencies to force the opposition's hand. He alleged that central agencies were pressuring members of parliament and MLAs to vote for the NDA candidate. Listen in to Yashwant Sinha.
मैं एक पॉलिटिकल लड़ाई ही नहीं लड़ रहा हूं। आप सब जानते हैं कि मैं सरकारी एजेंसियों के खिलाफ ही लड़ाई लड़ रहा हूं। इसमें सरकारी एजेंसियां बहुत सक्रिय हो गई हैं और राजनीतिक दलों में तोड़फोड़ करवाने का काम कर रही हैं। लोगों को इस बात के लिए बाध्य कर रही हैं कि वो उनके पक्ष में वोट डालें और पैसे का भी खेल हो रहा है।
And while this writing is on the wall, Draupadi Murmu already enjoys a clear majority. From the support that was pledged to her before election day, with the NDA having literally about 50% of the votes, now this number has creeped up to nearly 61 point something, close to 62%. That's not all, because today many opposition leaders also voted for her. They said they were listening to their conscience and voting for Murmu was the right thing to do. Many of them, who were Congress leaders, openly accepted to dumping their party's candidate, and listen in to what they had to say, listening to their conscience.
कांग्रेस का विधायक हूं, लेकिन जब बात आई मिट्टी का कि एक उड़िया हिसाब से उड़ीसा से पहले बार एक महिला फिर आदिवासी भारत के संविधान के सर्वोच्च पद के लिए इलेक्शन लड़ रही हैं, तो मैंने सोचा इस मिट्टी के लिए मेरा भी कुछ कर्तव्य है। तो इसलिए स्वाधीन मन से ये चिंता करके हमने निष्पत्ति लिया, सोचा कि व्यक्तिगत भाव से, व्यक्तिगत रूप से मेरी वोट द्रौपदी मुर्मू को जाना चाहिए, तो इसलिए मैं द्रौपदी मुर्मू को वोट दिया।
मैं विथ रेस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बोल रहा हूँ। जो माहौल अंदर देखा है, कांग्रेस का मिनिमम 20 आदमी क्रॉस वोट करेगा, 13 का ऊपर होगा तो मतलब कांग्रेस का ही होगा। मेरा काउंटर क्वेश्चन, क्योंकि वकील गोगोई का 1, सीपीएम का 1, बाकी तो सब कांग्रेस का है। 13 का ऊपर जितना नंबर होगा वो तो सारा कांग्रेस का ही होगा, एज सिंपल एज। तो रिजल्ट का दिन आप देख लीजिएगा, कांग्रेस का 20 आदमी ने, मिनिमम 20 एमएलए ने वोट दिया होगा द्रौपदी मुर्मू को।
Well, while the Congress seems to be in deep trouble with some cross-voting coming out, ladies and gentlemen, let's bear in mind the fact that Murmu's election will be historic for more than one reason. From being the youngest occupant of Rashtrapati Bhavan to being the first tribal leader to occupy this post, Murmu's life, work and her credentials won over the leaders in the opposition despite a concerted effort to slander her. A campaign was continued late till the 11th hour leading up to these elections. From branding her a rubber stamp to a statue and today being called a lollipop, everything has been tried for the 64-year politician who was even accused of representing evil philosophy by a Congress leader, no less. In fact, all of this has been tried, but it seems to have failed. One by one, the NDA with its choice of candidate chipped away at the opposition's numbers. Not only did the Modi camp manage to get deciders on board like the Biju Janata Dal, the YSR Congress, it even broke away the opposition's unity by getting in Uddhav Thackeray and his Shiv Sena and also the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, which runs a government in Jharkhand along with the Congress party and also Bahujan Samaj party who dumped the opposition and joined the Murmu bandwagon. The battle, of course, is not over yet. The next fight is for the post of the vice president. Two former governors eyeing the title. NDA's candidate Jagdeep Dhankar filed his nomination today in presence of the Prime Minister and other BJP stalwarts, an occasion that invited a swipe from the Congress as well. But the bigger controversy surrounds the opposition's candidate, Margaret Alva, who was announced as a consensus candidate by 19 opposition parties. Yet, BJP was quick to remind the Congress of the revelations Margaret Alva had made in her autobiography about the Gandhis. She spoke of the Congress's connections with Augusta Westland scam middleman Christian Michel's father. She also named Sanjay Gandhi and his confidant CPN Singh in her book. Listen in to how the opposition warded that allegation off.
You all have decided on Margaret Alva to be the vice president. What is the reason also? Because she has been saying things against the Congress party, have been saying that the Gandhis have been involved in some corruption, but then she has been nominated. She has been made the candidate. Is this to basically suffice her or to like make her feel better?
No, Congress has also agreed for candidature. So there is no question of any difference between the opposition parties or within the party.
This is the cheap attitude of the BJP, which thinks it's the reverse thing, the broad-mindedness of the Congress leadership. We know that thing that this battle is a one-sided battle.
So the legitimate question we are asking on the Newshour tonight, is it advantage BJP ahead of 2024 elections in these presidential elections? That's the question and that's the debate coming up on the other side. Hashtag Murmu Unstoppable. The debate coming up.
You're watching the Newshour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now. Super Prime Time.
And joining me on the debate tonight, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, national spokesperson of the BJP. Also joining me tonight, Sushmita Dev, Member of Parliament and national spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress. Ghanshyam Tiwari, spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. Reena Gupta, spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party. Sanjay Jha, author. But my first question goes to Dr. Amar Patnaik, Member of Parliament and national spokesperson of the Biju Janata Dal. And Dr. Amar Patnaik, I want to ask you, Draupadi Murmu represents a very important part of India's profile, which is She represents the backward Adivasis. She represents the fact that she's a woman, and she represents a tribe, the Santhal tribe, which has been the most backward of groups of people in this country, even 75 years after independence. Do you think it was the choice of Ms. Murmu that the NDA brought in that made the Biju Janata Dal put their lot behind her? Or do you think it is once again always about opposition being anti-Modi and therefore decisions being made on the basis of how the opposition can get numbers together for an anti-Modi style?
Navika, I think for us, people from Odisha, and which was made clear by our Honorable Chief Minister, she is an Odia, so it's for us, it's actually our pride, and she represents Odisha. This is extremely, a great moment for us. Besides this, the fact that she's a woman, and the fact again that our Chief Minister has always said that women are actually the double engine of growth in this country, particularly in our state. And of course, she belongs to very humble beginning, belongs to a very backward region. She has climbed up the ladder. So the fact that she represents something which is really good for the country. She represents empowerment of women, empowerment of people belonging to humble means, and empowerment of someone who has worked hard. So I think the consultation process that happened between our Chief Minister and Honorable Prime Minister of India was something which pleased the deal. In fact, our party, our Chief Minister has said that he would try, in fact we did, to try every vote from Orissa to be cast in our favor. So for us, she is our candidate. For us, she represents our pride. For us, she represents somebody who has worked hard to reach that position. She's a woman who has shown that by grit of her determination, grit of her hard work, she has reached the position where she is now.
Well, Sushmita Dev, she's an Oriya, and that's natural for him to, that's the state pride, and he comes from Orissa, a party that represents Orissa. But on the other hand, he also talks about the attributes of her rising up the ranks. I want to ask you, as a woman, deep down your conscience, what would it tell you? Draupadi Murmu is no ordinary woman standing for presidential elections. Do you think you had a conflict in your heart about whether to vote for her or for Mr. Yashwant Sinha, and Mr. Yashwant Sinha's allegations about the government using ED, using CBI and horse trading happening? Do you think that really happened in the presidential elections? I want you to answer that question fair and square, looking at our viewers directly in the eye.
My conscience is crystal clear. A presidential election of this sort, and in the given background and backdrop of the country, is not about two individuals. Yes, it does matter which state they come from and what is their background. I mean, they have to be befitting candidates. But to say it is about a woman and it's only about the state she comes from and the community she comes from, totally misses out on the larger picture of the fact that the constitution is under threat. And a presidential post, which is one of the highest constitutional posts, is a position, a chair that protects and upholds the constitution. So I will not disrespect what my friend Dr. Patnaik is saying from the BJP. His emotions are well respected, but I'm going to say the way we are coming from is a totally different perspective. You see, coming from Bengal, we have seen the kind of attack federalism has been under. In Parliament, we have seen how bills which are not money bills have been pushed as bills and sent to the President's house for its assent, and it's been given. It's a much larger part, Navika. I respect every woman parliamentarian. I respect anyone who's risen from the ranks. It's nothing personal. And if you ask me about my conscience is clear. I am voting against the practice of turning a president's post, which is supposed to uphold the constitution, into an exactly opposite situation. That's the vote as far as my party is concerned. And I do not want to disrespect the candidate of the NDA alliance partners and whoever is supporting her. I respect everybody's opinions, view, but it's rather short-sightedness to say it's about the fact that she's a woman and she's a tribal lady. There's a much larger picture here which we must not miss. And when Yashwant Sinha ji said about ED and CBI and central agencies, that is also a very big issue that is occupying the political space in the country today. Please understand that it is but quite obvious that anybody who is warming up to the treasury benches, or who's close to the treasury benches, or is sitting on the treasury benches, have today escaped the investigation of central agencies. But politicians who are, or MPs, MLAs, or people connected or close to the opposition parties have been consistently targeted. There are a plethora of cases and reasons why BJP politicians should be investigated by the central agencies, but it's not happening. And be that as it may, that is very much on the mind of the people of India, and that's what Yashwant Sinha ji is referring to, that the pressure politics of central agencies and horse trading is something that is also what he's fighting.
You've clearly not answered the question. Was there horse trading in the presidential elections? Yes or no?
Well, let the ballot boxes open. Let the ballot boxes open. At least vis-a-vis Bengal, I can say there were several attempts to talk to our MLAs, and there were a lot of things being offered, and it was tried. And I met somebody today, and this is not hearsay. But a Bengal MLA clearly had an offer which he didn't take. So there were several attempts by the Bharatiya Janata Party to try and allure people undemocratically in a situation like this.
Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, that's a very serious charge being made by Sushmita Devji that the BJP has tried to allure people. And therefore, what Yashwant Sinha has also made a statement today is something that she says is true. Respond to those very serious charges being made.
Navika, I'll surely respond to what has been stated. But first, as we discuss this, history is being created, and history in many sense, first ever president who would be a member of the scheduled tribe community. History being created because there is a strong message about women being empowered. And let us see how the candidature of Draupadi Murmu ji received support, not just within the NDA, but from the Uddhav Thackeray faction of Shiv Sena, from the JMM that has a government in alliance with the Congress in Jharkhand, from the BSP, and we have been told even Congress MLAs in Assam have cross-voted because they wanted to support the candidature of Murmu ji. The JDS and others too. What does it show? It shows that her candidature and choice by the Bharatiya Janata Party was an exceptional choice. And I heard Sushmita ji. I would like to just bring this fact out as well, that Mamata Banerjee, the tallest leader of the TMC, herself made a statement that we would have also endorsed Murmu ji's candidature if we were consulted. Now, I would like to say that shows that the selection was right and it was the perfect choice made in the interest of the country. Second, let us contrast this. Yashwant Sinha ji was the national vice president of the TMC. But Yashwant Sinha ji was not even asked to campaign within West Bengal. There must be a reason. Because Mamata Banerjee ji felt insecure that she might lose her vote bank of the scheduled tribe community. Now coming to the other part, you know, the 3-4 parties that are there on the screen tonight in the discussion, they can't even choose their party presidents. The Congress being represented by my friend Sanjay Jha, if I may say so. 3 years they've not been able to elect their own president. The TMC has only seen a president from one family, Mamata Banerjee, and nobody else has been given a chance. Samajwadi Party, the same story is repeated. Only one family is entitled to be the president of the party. And Aam Aadmi Party, it is only Arvind Kejriwal. How will these people understand the democratic values that should be present in running a party or a government or giving a president to the country? And I would end by only saying, regarding the charge being made of misuse of agencies, let me make it very clear that JMM, the BSP and other parties like the BJD decide to support the candidature, we have to accept that there is something very positive about Shrimati Murmu ji, and that is why on merit she is being supported. Don't be a sore loser like Yashwant Sinha and make these baseless allegations that there is horse trading or misuse of agencies.
Well, I want to ask you, Mr. Patnaik, are you also a party which is not part of the NDA, but are you also a party that lives under the threat of central agencies, number one, and number two, horse trading?
Absolutely not. In fact, I just would like to first comment on what has been said before. When we say that we are trying to protect the democratic values and the Constitution, in fact, one of the basic tenets of our Constitution is to provide this empowerment of the poor, of the underprivileged, of the disadvantaged, and on the SCs and STs of this country, the poor and the disadvantaged and the privileged. And aren't we prejudging by saying that someone who comes from that background, someone who is a woman, would probably not be able to read the Constitution or would not be able to dispense the kind of democracy that is being spoken about? I think this is being a great disservice to Srimati Draupadi Murmu, who has really worked hard at various levels and has started from the block chairman level and became a governor and now the highest constitutional position. As regards your question relating to misuse of central agencies and the point relating to horse trading, I think the results would be there in very quick time, and you would see that there was an unanimity in our party. Unanimity in our society in Orissa that she is the candidate that all of us should vote for. And you saw the one Congress MLA went ahead and voted for her because he was guided by his conscience.
Absolutely,
But the point, I'll just give me
Sushmita Dev, where does that leave you? And a very pertinent question raised by Mr. Gaurav Bhatia. If you support Mr. Yashwant Sinha so much, why did he not come to Bengal? Why did you not have him seek the votes of people of Bengal?
See, you've asked me 3 questions. First of all, I'd like to say that if the BJP is batting so hard about empowerment of women and empowerment of somebody who belongs to the scheduled tribes community, let me please refresh their memories. Dr. Punna Sangma from the northeast, Meghalaya, who's the father of Conrad Sangma and who was the Lok Sabha speaker, ran for president. And I don't think at that time the NDA viewed him as a tribal leader who needs to be empowered, number one. And if you are batting so hard for women empowerment, one of the biggest political reforms, the Women's Reservation Bill, which the Prime Minister Modi promised 8 years back till today, is languishing. Somewhere the bill has not been introduced. So you can't say heads is also mine and tail is also mine. And I'd like to tell my friend, Dr. Patnaik, that it is crystal clear at the cost of repeating myself. You're entitled to your views, and I mean, no disrespect to a woman or someone who's a tribal or someone who's come up from the ranks. But I can tell you this much, that you can't make it just about that. It's about many other things. Why did Yashwant Sinha ji come to Bengal? For your kind information, Yashwant Sinha ji came to Bengal, met our leaders, and don't forget that Yashwant Sinha ji comes from the Trinamool Congress. He actually resigned from this party to contest the presidential election. So he didn't have to come to his party, which is his home and which is his family. He went to other states and the time was very short, as you know. And I hope all that answers my question.
Absolutely.
So at the cost of
Theory and feisty Sushmita Dev gives it back to the BJP spokesperson Gaurav Bhatia. Absolutely.
Navika, one very important thing which Gaurav Bhatia ji said, that Mamata Banerjee, the tallest leader of the Trinamool, said, I wish I knew Murmuji's name and I would have considered her. Let me once again burst the balloon of lies. She was asked publicly that why are you not supporting somebody who's a tribal lady, who's a woman. She said that the BJP first decided on the candidate and after that started approaching others. They never bothered asking them before. So it's imposing a candidate. So please do not for a moment mislead our viewers. BJP is an expert in pulling things out of context. Our candidate came as Yashwant Sinha ji, and it was a suggestion of Mamata Banerjee to actually give Yashwant Sinha ji's name as one of the candidates. So do not misrepresent facts.
Well, we'll come back to you, Gaurav Bhatia. Let me get in Reena Gupta ji. Reena Gupta ji. Okay. Yeah, I'll come back to you, but Reena Gupta ji, I want to ask you, why is the opposition so hell-bent on just proving a political point? Because as far as the numbers are concerned and as far as the credentials of Draupadi Murmu ji are concerned, clearly many would say that she is a deserving candidate simply because, and it's not just a hollow representation of the backward, castes and tribes in this country. It's also about, bringing them right at the top of the country as the first citizen to give priority to those issues that demand the attention, because 75 years after independence, we still see these castes and tribes and populations way below the level of development that other parts of the communities are. So I want to ask you, is it just Modi Virod? Is it just anti-Modiism that keeps the opposition going?
Navika, let me start by saying that, when we decided to support Yashwant Sinha ji for the president candidate, we at the onset said that we really respect Murmu ji and we are very happy that she has been nominated. However, in this day and age where the country is going through very tough times, and we know that the Bharatiya Janata Party has been trying to use all unconstitutional measures in the parliament itself. We saw how during the farm bill, they passed bills by the voice vote. They used all sorts of unconstitutional methods. They are a party that has been known to pass ordinances, one ordinance after the other. So in such tough times, the party discussed and the party agreed that we need somebody who has a track record of standing up to such unconstitutional decisions. And that is the reason why we supported Mr. Yashwant Sinha. As far as giving representation to scheduled castes and scheduled tribes is concerned, Navika, there are various ways of doing that. As Sushmita ji is also saying that, why don't we go ahead and pass the women's reservation bill, which has been pending for so many years now, which is something that the Prime Minister had promised to pass. Let's do that. Let's get more women in the parliament. Let's all political parties agree that we will give more tickets to people from the minorities, from the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, and let's increase their voice in the parliament. However, at this time, we decided that Mr. Yashwant Sinha's candidature is something that we wanted to support, and that is the reason why we went ahead and supported.
Well, for a party that doesn't have any women ministers, you really hold up the cause of women in this country. Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, would you want to respond to both Sushmita ji and Reena Gupta ji?
Yes, surely. You know, the women reservation bill has been brought up by Sushmita ji and also Reena ji. Let me refresh a memory of Sushmita ji. Mamta Banerjee and TMC was part of the UPA. It was passed in one house and then it was never tabled and passed in the other house. But you were sleeping at that time. And Sushmita ji, representative of Samajwadi Party, is sitting here. Do you know, you getting the support? Yashwant Sinha ji is getting the support from Samajwadi Party. Mulayam Singh Yadav ji, the chief of Samajwadi Party, had opposed the bill by saying, परकटी महिलाओं को हम कैसे समर्थन करें, ये बिल का फायदा परकटी महिलाओं को मिलेगा. On that principle, you should have rejected the support coming from Samajwadi Party, but you wouldn't. And for the Bharatiya Janata Party, let me just name two major feats that have been achieved. Highest representation of members of the ST community in the ministry, 8 of them, and the date of birth of Bhagwan Birsa Munda will be celebrated. This is a decision that was welcomed by members of the ST community, was taken by the Modi government. Now coming to the point that Navika, you were raising, these people are in a bad habit of opposing everything that is initiated by the Modi government, be it one rank, one pension, GST, Article 370, National War Memorial, CAA, Vista project, new parliament building, you name it, Navika. And you know, this is the problem with the opposition. They have taken the term opposition too strictly and seriously. They feel that if they're in the opposition, they can't make any constructive suggestions. They can't build a consensus. They just have to oppose. And that is why people of India have rejected them.
But Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, you know, while what you are saying, viewers will take a call on that. But the fact is that the BJP hasn't really tried and gone out of its way to get consensus building anyways. Many times, ahead of parliament sessions on important issues, all party meetings could be called. Even if you wanted support for the president's candidature, you could have called for an all-party support. You could have reached across the aisle, but the BJP also doesn't do that. So the question is...
No, that's not correct, Navika. I'll respond. I can't hear your audio, Navika.
Can't hear.
Can I respond, please? I think Navika has a bad video link. Yes. Thank you.
Even I can't hear it.
So it's not correct, Navika, when you say that the Bharatiya Janata Party did not try to build a consensus, because there was a committee that was constituted. Rajnath Singh ji, one of the tallest leaders of the Bharatiya Janata Party, reached out to other leaders and we did try to build a consensus. But these people, out of their hatred for Shri Narendra Modi ji, would never agree on a name. And look at the kind of insults that have been meted out towards Srimati Draupadi Murmu ji. The Congress spokesperson said she reflects evil ideology. Is it a way to respect a woman who has, led and who has held such high constitutional positions? Tejasvi Yadav called her Murti, a statue. For what reason? Tejasvi Yadav himself can't read one single line without the help of a written paper speech. And today RJD spokesperson made a very insulting derogatory remark when he said, "Hum Draupadi ji ka cheer haran nahi karenge." It was on a nationally televised debate. Now I want to ask, you may not support the candidature, but such statements coming from opposition parties only show that they do not respect members of the ST community and they do not respect women. And this should be condemned.
Well, let me ask you, Dr. Sanjay Jha. You know what Yashwant Sinha has said about Dr. Manmohan Singh, and in that context about Rahul Gandhi. Those sound bites are viral on social media if you just do a search on Yashwant Sinha. The question is, Yashwant Sinha, a man who said Rahul Gandhi ऐसे घोड़े हैं बारात के जो आगे भी नहीं बढ़ते पीछे भी नहीं जाते बस खड़े हैं, और मिस्टर डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह को उनको बर्दाश्त करना पड़ता है. He is more acceptable to you, but not Draupadi Murmu. Is this all about anti-Modiism?
Navika, I think, we are missing the elephant in the room in today's discussion. And I'll give you 3 examples of that. And the primary issue that we should be discussing is how BJP, and as a political party, they have a right to do so, but how they are taking the entire country for a ride by only indulging in synthetic symbolism or giving a cosmetic lip service to the welfare of the tribals or to the Dalits. Let me give you 3 examples. Do we remember that we had a very distinguished president, Dr. Abdul Kalam? And do we know today what the BJP is doing to the Muslims in the country? It's about time that we people on a very responsible channel, there is Mr. Patnaik, Mr. Bhatia, Mr. Tiwari, and the representative from the Aam Aadmi Party, my old friend Sushmita. The truth of the matter is, how can we just turn a blind eye because it's politically convenient to today believe that the BJP is on a major front-loaded run and everything that Mr. Modi does is the greatest magical politics? This is a party that only talked about a precedent in even Mr. Kovind being a Dalit. And shall I tell you the number of the laundry list of violence that has happened against Dalits since the BJP became in power in 2014? I mean, can we be so politically immoral, intellectually dishonest, and in my opinion, so crudely contemptuous of the collective wisdom of this country? I mean, Gaurav Bhatia here waxes eloquent on women, etc., etc. I want to ask him a question that at the end of the day, the principal fundamental of politics is, what is your intention? And I do believe that you are talking about Draupadi Murmu, and I can also tell you this, Gaurav Bhatia, I have data with me, but I don't want to bore people with hard statistics. But the way your government has gone after environmental degradation, the way you have done deforestation, and that's where the Dalit, that's where the tribals live. Do you realize the kind of dislocation you have done? You have created forced migration. You have played into the hands of the large industries in this country who have exploited India's natural resources because they fulfilled their corporate profits. And guess who's paid for it? The tribals, the Adivasis and the Dalits pay for it. And you will then indulge in this grand symbolism. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of this country, will talk about why we need to do things for women, the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribe. Well, at the end of the day, you're doing nothing. But
Sanjay Jha, it's not good to have a very short memory. Remember the UPA years and the Sterlite and the Vedanta issues then. Just a little flashback. But Gaurav Bhatia, yes, you can rebut him, but let me first get in Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari as well. He hasn't spoken yet, so you can then combine both, Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari also said, and then you can respond. Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, today everybody here is coming out and talking about how much they respect women. But there is a statement that was picked up by Gaurav Bhatia ji about Parkati Mahilaएं. And I was there in Parliament when that statement was being made. And we saw the scenes. People literally had to be carried out by marshals, especially from your party, when the Rajya Sabha had passed the women's reservation bills. So if you're talking about symbolism, well, if the NDA or the BJP is being accused of symbolism of one kind, then talking well about women is a symbolism of another kind that the Samajwadi Party talks, and the Samajwad that the Samajwadi Party talks about. So I want to ask you, does Murmu not represent Samajwad?
Good evening to you, the viewers and the fellow co-panel. I think if you have to look at the series of statements, 50 crore ki girlfriend statement that Gaurav Bhatia will celebrate and you may defend on television was by Narendra Modi, and you are welcome to criticize that statement even now if you want, but I don't.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anything derogatory about women is going to be criticized by me. So please play that soundbite. By the way, Mr.
I waited for my turn.
Yeah, but since you are challenging me, I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician. I'm a journalist, and I stand up for the rights of women. And you don't have to challenge me. Challenge the other politicians and your own party people. Please go on.
The recent the recent infamy of Didi O Didi is again against women, and as a result, BJP was routed. I don't think the media in India criticizes that. You criticize Narendra Modi on Didi O Didi, this campaign that disrespects women. So let's not put moral compass on others. Let's debate the presidential elections. As far as presidential elections is concerned, look at the tribunal. Government on 28 notified the new forest conservation rules. That is the right of tribal communities. The question is whether the president who represents the community stand up against these rules, because these rules are being brought in the name of ease of doing business and will help the people, these capitalists of BJP. As far as the fight in this country is concerned, at a time when media is subdued, our institutions are subdued, we need a president who can build the strength of our democratic institutions. And if there is an example of that Gaurav Bhatia can present, then welcome to do that. I don't think that is under discussion. We are fortunate that we have very, very capable candidates. One, Governor Draupadi Murmu, and then Mr. Yashwant Sinha, who I have worked with. And Governor Draupadi Murmu has risen through her hard work and grit, and I respect that. But at the same time, when farmers were attacked, Yashwant Sinha stood for them. When youth were attacked and unemployment was brushed under the carpet, Mr. Yashwant Sinha stood for them. When federal structure was attacked, Mr. Yashwant Sinha stood for them. When judiciary was attacked, Mr. Yashwant Sinha stood for them. So maybe these things don't matter for BJP anymore, because for them, everything is about subduing themselves and their intelligence to Mr. Modi and pushing this country into this Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas headline, but under it, the toxic Hindu-Muslim hatred that BJP brings to various platforms.
Gaurav Bhatia, basically, the tenor of the debate is that the constitution is under threat, judiciary is under threat, media is under threat, of course, opposition parties are under threat. And the BJP is just running this country with their own writ of brute majority. Respond to the flurry of charges.
Yes. First of all, responding to Samajwadi Party, he was talking about Yashwant Sinha ji. Yashwant Sinha ji had commented, Navika, and I quote him, Mulayam Singh Yadav is an ISI agent. So if they believe so much about what Yashwant Sinha ji says, then immediately I think Samajwadi Party, being an party which has been founded by an ISI agent, should be disbanded. Second, they can't blame us. Shivpal Yadav ji, family member, not even voting for Yashwant Sinha. He said no, Draupadi Murmu ji is a better candidate. And now can they blame, the pressure politics that they were alleging? No. Shivpal Yadav found genuinely that Draupadi Murmu ji is a more worthy candidate. Third, SPLI, just a few months back they allied with O.P. Rajbhar. He decided to even support Draupadi Murmu ji. Now, what is the reason? Because they can't keep their own flock together. There is no ideology. There is only Mahima Mandan of one person, Akhilesh Yadav. Akhilesh Yadav lacks the leadership qualities that are required to lead from the front. After the elections are over, nobody even sees where he is. Is he raking any issues in the parliament? His attendance was a meager 35%. Now coming to the second point, destroying the constitution and democracy, let me make it very clear. Narendra Modi ji, every breath that he takes, he is strengthening the constitution and democratic structure of our country. There is no emergency which Indira Gandhi had invoked. All judiciary is strong and powerful, giving verdicts for and against the government. That's the way it should be. Nobody has been superseded in the Supreme Court like happened in the Congress governments. And we have seen how Samajwadi Party ran Uttar Pradesh. There were communal riots. There was discrimination on the basis of religion. That is not happening.
Let me also remind you that when the Shiv Sena was your alliance partner under Bal Thackeray, they voted for Pratibha Patil at that point in time in 2007 and Pranab Mukherjee in 2012 because he was a very senior parliamentarian.
So did we allege that there is horse trading? Did we allege that there is horse trading and misuse of agencies?
Well.
These also
There's
ask
nothing,
for research to,
as they say, nothing
Yes.
succeeds like success. And in this particular election, it seems the chips are in favor of Draupadi Murmu. The numbers are in her favor, given the fact that there are so many political parties that have come out to support Draupadi Murmu ji. Apart from the alliance partners of the NDA, there is the Naga People's Front, there is the National People's Party, there is the All Jharkhand Students Union, Lok Janshakti Party, there is also the Tamil Manila Congress Mupna, there is Jansatta Dal Loktantrik, there is the also Jharkhand Mukti Morcha in alliance with the Congress Party, Suhel Dev Bharatiya Samaj Party, Janata Dal Secular. So it seems many political parties have gravitated towards the candidature of Draupadi Murmu. Yet the opposition, of course it has a right to post another candidate. But the question is this just a short-term political fight and confrontation? Or is this really about anti-Modiism? We leave this debate at that. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on debate number 1. On the other side, of course, the big debate on the GST. The Aam Aadmi, ladies and gentlemen, has had to swallow one too many bitter pills. Today, another pill that has been served to them is with the cost of many articles going up after the GST decision has been taken. Everyday items like rice, wheat, packaged curd are costlier now. Not just food items, hospital bills are all set to go more expensive, and so is travel, with hotel bills expected to increase. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. The opposition has raised the issue in Parliament, accusing the centre of punishing the Janata. Members of Parliament stormed the well of the House and raised slogans forcing the proceedings to be adjourned for the day. Meanwhile, the BJP has hit back at the opposition, saying the decision was taken at the GST Council meeting, which was attended by ministers of the opposition states, including Rajasthan, West Bengal and Kerala. The government has said no opposition was raised in the meeting as prices were raised unanimously. BJP accused the opposition of fooling the people with this hypocrisy. Listen in.
Of course, every party is a part of the GST Council, but ultimately the government is the one who is to take the decision, right? Did any party in the thing tell to raise the taxes? Where are the proceedings for that? The government is the one who has to take the thing. Of course, suggestions will be given by each and every party. But this kind of tax terrorism, this kind of surgical strike on the middle class and the poor people is definitely not a welcome move by the government.
Decision taken by the GST Council has endorsement of each and every state. Every state's vote value is the same. Therefore, this decision has been taken in consultation with all Congress-ruled states. Now, if Rahul Gandhi is not aware of the process, maybe he should educate himself. Also, this GST will allow for manufacturers and service providers to claim input credit, which will actually help bring down the prices of the commodities.
Well, let's go straight into the debate where we have with us Reena Gupta, Dr. Sanjay Jha. We also have Dr. Anand Ranganathan also joining, and Gaurav Bhatia. Reena Gupta, what's the problem? Every state is represented, is what the BJP says. The fact is the Aam Aadmi is reeling under high inflation, and now all political parties get together in the GST Council to literally make life tougher for the Aam Aadmi.
Navika, right now the economy is in doldrums. Rupee is at its lowest. Inflation is at a 30-year high. Unemployment is at a 40-year high. And what is the Modi government doing? All it's doing is it's increasing lagan for the Aam Aadmi and Aam Aurat of this country. And at the same time, it is distributing revenues to its friends in the terms of, in the form of crony capitalism. Modi government has written off 11,000 crores to its friends like Adani's and the Mehul Choskis and the Nirav Modis of the country, who have taken all of this money and have run away. And as a result of all of this, the burden on the common person of this country is going up. And I am really not sure who's advising this current government, because this does not make any sense that you
in the
you
GST in the GST Council, ma'am, your party is also advising.
Yes, Navika, and we opposed all of this in the GST Council. But of course, the government, due to its brute majority, just goes ahead and does what it wants to do.
Brute majority.
We have opposed,
Dr.
we have opposed
Anand
all of this. Can I complete, Navika? I mean, who in their right mind will advise the government to increase taxes on dahi, chawal, murmure? You have 5% GST, and on diamonds you have 1.5% GST. So what you are telling the country, तुम्हारे पास खाने के लिए तो नहीं है, लेकिन जाओ तुम हीरे जवाहरात खरीदो, उस पे हम GST कम करेंगे, और हम जो रोजमर्रा की चीजें हैं, गेहूं, चावल, दही, मुरमुरे, इन पे हम GST बढ़ाएंगे, हॉस्पिटल बेड्स पे हम GST बढ़ाएंगे. I think the only thing which is left is that कल से ये बोलेंगे कि आप जो सांसें ले रहे हैं, जो हवा में ऑक्सीजन है, उस पे भी हम GST लगाएंगे. Now,
Dr. Anand Ranganathan, now is that an exaggeration? Allow me to get it, Dr.
Just one last point, Navika.
Reena Gupta ji, I'm short of time. This is the second debate, Dr. Anand Ranganathan.
The GST collection has been at the highest. Where is all this money going? I mean, they should start levying GST.
Okay, Reena Gupta ji,
buying and selling.
Just a minute, Dr. Anand Ranganathan.
Thank you, Navika. There are four very brief issues that I would like to elaborate on. Number one, away from the hyperbole and the outrage of the opposition, which possibly it is well within its right to outrage on any government step, the fact of the matter is that this is a long overdue revenue-neutral GST Council step, and for that reason, there was no objection in the GST Council meeting that had all the state governments as well as the central government. That's point number one. Point number two, which is also very important, is that let me go back, because I know what my good friend Sanjay Jha is going to say. So let me do a surgical strike on him and ask him, or maybe rhetorically, do you know who was the person who said paise ped pe nahi ugte hain when he increased the diesel prices? Somehow, from somewhere, you have to get the money. You can't just keep on spending it and enter into a vicious cycle of debt. So you have to earn. Nobody likes taxes. Nobody likes raising taxes, because obviously any government that raises taxes is worried that it may actually lose the voters, will get disenchanted, and it will lose the elections. So no government likes it. But sometimes it is important. Number three, the point of the matter is that no state government, including the central government, is willing to put the petrol or fuel prices on GST. Have you asked them why?
Absolutely. Have you
asked why? I'll give you the reason.
That's the double speak. That's the double speak. And Sanjay Jha, you have to answer that. You will not reduce the state taxes on diesel and petrol, but lectures to the BJP come for free without GST.
Well, Navika, my first answer would be to Anand Ranganathan, who believed that he was preempting me, but he wasn't, because I had a very different perspective to offer. Number one, he says the government has to raise taxes. But Anand Ranganathan, you know what? There is something called direct taxes. I hope you have heard of them. They include personal income tax. They include the tax of the super rich. They include the tax on the corporates. And any efficient growing economy, Anand, it increases its taxes of direct taxes and not indirect taxes. Do you know why, Anand? I will tell you why. Because indirect taxes, which is what a GST is, whether the GST is on petrol or whether it is on papad that Mr. Modi wants to impose it, whether it is on atta.
Well, I thought you were an economist as well. 1 minute. I'm completely out of time, but I thought Sanjay Jha was an economist, and I'll tell you, direct taxes are paid by 3 crore people, of which possibly 50 lakh pay a substantial amount. The others pay very, very little direct tax. And that's not going to finance everything in this country. But Gaurav Bhatia, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, अच्छे दिन तो आए नहीं, बुरे दिन इतने क्यों?
नाविका जी, ये तो नजरों का फेर है. 200 करोड़ टीके लग गए, जिन टीकों को खतरनाक बताया जाता था. अच्छे दिन तो आए नहीं। 80 करोड़ लोगों को कोविड की महामारी में 2 साल तक राशन मिला, अच्छे दिन तो आए नहीं। जीएसटी लागू हो गया, आर्टिकल 370 हटा दिया गया, नेशनल वॉर मेमोरियल बन गया, अच्छे दिन तो आए नहीं। हम लोग कब जानेंगे अच्छे दिन? एंड लुक एट दी मिस इन्फॉर्मेशन कैंपेन right on your channel. Reena Gupta ji said that highest inflation in 30 years. The average inflation rate under the NDA government is around 4.5% to 5% in the last 8 years.
Right now it's about 7.5%.
Highest inflation rate in the UPA era
7.5%
went to 13%. 13%. The average. No, I'm saying yes, 7.5. But am I wrong when I say average inflation rate is around 4.5% to 5%? And during the UPA regime, it was 13% highest. So 30 years when she says she's factually wrong is my point. Second, she doesn't even care to tell the viewers the right facts. Hospital, beds would be charged 5% GST. Hospital beds, non-ICU, above rupees 5,000 will be charged. So the common man, आम आदमी 5,000 से नीचे का बेड लेता है, ऊपर का नहीं। थर्ड, शी वाज स्पीकिंग अबाउट ऑक्सीजन पे भी टैक्स लग जाएगा। अरे जनता को जब ऑक्सीजन चाहिए था, अरविंद केजरीवाल जी तो ऑक्सीजन दे ही नहीं पा रहे थे। सुप्रीम कोर्ट और दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट ने फटकार लगाई थी। नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने दिया था।
It's a fact that the Modi government has provided free vaccinations and it has done a great job as far as giving rations to the people below the poverty line are concerned. But Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, even you will agree with me कि इंजेक्शन लग गया तो अच्छी बात है, बूस्टर लग गया बहुत अच्छी बात है, खाना तो फिर भी खाना पड़ेगा ना। तो खाने के दाम इतने बढ़ा देंगे तो गरीब जाएगा कहाँ? हॉस्पिटल बेड ना सही, लेकिन चावल, आटा ये तो चाहिए जीने के लिए। बस आम आदमी की थोड़ी सी गुहार सुन लीजिए। Inflation is high and of course people are reeling under the pressure. This comes as a double whammy to them. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much to my panelists for joining me on the Newshour tonight. Good night. Take care.
The News Hour at 9 will be right back after the break.
The playground in question belongs to the Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike. It is a government-owned property. Muslims are being allowed to perform namaz and prayers twice a year on the days of Ramadan and Bakrid. But non-Muslims are not being allowed to use this land for any religious and cultural activities. We are planning to have a Ganesha Utsav on this particular playground, and we are also putting up 25 to 30 stalls which sell Lord Ganesha's idols. We are submitting a memorandum to the BBMP Commissioner in this regard.
Newshour at 9. You were watching the Newshour at 9. Stay tuned.
देश का प्रतीक है ये, हर हिंदुस्तानी के नजदीक है ये, हर डर को भगा देता है, हर देशवासी के अंदर जोश जगा देता है. Today I am here at Kishtwar and you can see the tricolor has been raised, and for this tricolor we have seen that how these brave hearts always try to ensure there is an unwritten commitment from their side that at any cost they will see this tricolor fluttering. For that even they are ready to take bullets on their body. For that they have even sacrificed their life. If today we are talking about peace and prosperity in Kashmir, it's only because of these brave hearts who had always been there for the people of the country, who had always been there for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. We have seen that few months back, some of the politicians said that after abrogation of Article 370, there will be hardly anyone to hold tricolor in their hand. But you can see that how a new chapter has been scripted, how things have really changed and winds of change have already started blowing. And you can find these youngsters proudly looking towards the tricolor, 100 feet high tricolor, which can be seen from any of the hillock surrounding this Kishtwar town. After Kashmir Valley, Jammu region, now it is the Kishtwar where we have got this tricolor fluttering high. And every Indian's chest swells with pride when they look at the tricolor, because they know it is not only about tricolor, it is also about the sacrifice of our soldier. It's all, if we see the tricolor fluttering, it is not because of the blowing wind, it is because of the supreme sacrifice of each and every soldier. Let's talk to the youngsters. कैसा लग रहा है जब आज आप ये तिरंगा लहराते हुए देख रहे हैं?
सर ये हमारे लिए एक प्राउड मोमेंट है. आज हम बहुत खुश हैं कि हमारे किश्तवाड़ जिले में इतना अच्छा काम हो रहा है.
कितना जोश आ रहा है?
सर बहुत ज़्यादा जोश आ रहा है. हमें खुशी हो रही है कि किश्तवाड़ में ऐसा पहली बार हो रहा है कि 100 फीट ऊपर एक तिरंगा लहरा रहा है एक ऐसी चौक पर. तो हमें बहुत ज़्यादा गर्व हो रहा है किश्तवाड़ पर भी.
आपके लिए कितना इंस्पायरिंग मोमेंट है?
सर बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, बहुत फील अच्छा आ रहा है.
गर्व फील हो रहा है, जोश आ रहा है?
सर
कोई जोश से भारत माता की जय करके कितना जोर से बोलेंगे?
भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय!
कितना गर्व फील कर रहे हैं आज आप?
सर बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है. पहली बार ऐसा देखा कि किश्तवाड़ में फ्लैग बना.
Tears in her eyes narrate the whole story, because nobody had thought that this thing is going to really happen. But today, see how things have really changed.
Hello and good evening. You're watching the Newshour Agenda. I'm Padmaja Joshi. Hope all of you had a great weekend. The death of a class 12 student in a private school in Tamil Nadu has shaken up the country. The teenager was found dead in her private school hostel at Chinna Salem in the Cuddalore district. After her parents alleged foul play, anger and disaffection grew till the time that violent protests broke out on Sunday that carried on for several hours. The school was attacked. There were vehicles, school buses that were set on fire. Eventually, the parents of the teenager went to court with a plea that there should be a CBCID investigation and that there should be another post-mortem conducted on her because they do not trust the proceedings that have taken place so far. However, the sequence of events have thrown up many questions. Times Now has accessed the suicide note of the young girl, which seems to suggest that she was being tortured. In fact, the suicide note that we have with us says that the teenager was being pressured by her teachers of chemistry and math. She also speaks in this note of constantly being rebuked and even uses the word torture at the hands of her teachers. However, the Chief Minister and the government have all assured that full justice has been done and will be done in the case, and that her parents' doubts are ill-founded.
மன வருத்தம் ஏற்படுத்தும் வகையில் கள்ளக்குறிச்சியில் நடந்த சம்பவங்கள் அமைந்துள்ளன. கல்வி நிலையங்கள் ஒவ்வொரு பிள்ளைகளையும் தங்களது சொந்த பிள்ளைகளாக நினைத்து அவர்களை பயிற்றுவிக்க வேண்டும். மாறாக நடக்கும் எந்த செயல்களாக இருந்தாலும் அவர்கள் சட்டத்தின் முன் நிறுத்தப்பட்டு தண்டிக்கப்படுவார்கள் என எச்சரிக்கிறேன். இந்த சோகமான சூழலை பயன்படுத்தி கொண்டு சிலர் சேர்ந்து சட்டவிரோதமாக நடந்து கொண்டுள்ளார்கள். வன்முறைகள் என்பது வளர்ச்சிக்கு எதிரானவை என்பதை அவர்கள் உணர வேண்டும்.
Today, the Honorable Court has given a verdict for us also. So, based on the verdict, as our Honorable Chief Minister said, we will form a committee.
The parents, however, have made strong charges in their affidavit before court, which has ultimately resulted in fresh post-mortem being ordered tomorrow. In his affidavit, the teen's father has said that his wife, when she rushed to the hostel on Wednesday, she found blood on the floor, she found no blood, in fact, on the floor where her daughter was alleged to have fallen. She also claims to have seen blood stains on the wall of the hostel veranda, which was a good 10 feet away from the alleged place of suicide. Further, he says that there were marks of a blood-stained palm on a wall and questioned why the family was not allowed to inspect the hostel room. Even as the family is crying a cover-up, the school instead has accused them of collaborating with inimical elements to participate in mob violence that cinched the school and the town yesterday.
ஜூலை 13ஆம் தேதி எனக்கு ஃபோன் வருது. 6:30 மணிக்கு ஃபோன் அடிக்கிறாங்க. உங்கள் பாப்பா உயிரோட தான் இருக்கிறா, வாங்க கள்ளக்குறிச்சி ஹாஸ்பிட்டலுக்குன்னு. திரும்ப நாங்கள் ½ அன் ஹவர் ஆகலைங்க ஃபோன் அடித்து உங்கள் பொண்ணு செத்துடுச்சு, உயிரோடு இருக்குன்னு சொன்ன ஒரு பொண்ணை அரை மணி நேரத்துலேயே உங்கள் பொண்ணு செத்துருச்சின்னு சொல்லிட்டாங்கங்க. அடுத்தது நாங்கள் கள்ளக்குறிச்சிக்கு போனோம். கள்ளக்குறிச்சி போய் டாக்டரை பார்க்கக்குள்ள உங்கள் பொண்ணு செத்துதாமா வந்துச்சின்னு சொல்லிட்டாங்கங்க. ஸ்கூலில் இதோட 7வது கொலைன்னு 7 கொலையும் பண்ணிவிட்டு ஒவ்வொருத்தவங்களுக்கும் அவங்க பணத்தால் அடித்து மறைச்சி திரும்ப ஸ்கூல் நிர்வாகத்தை நடத்திக்கிட்டே வராங்க.
நிறைய தெரிஞ்சுக்கலாம். இதுக்கு பள்ளிக்கும் இதுக்கும் எந்த சம்பந்தம் இல்லைங்கிறது நீங்கள் தெளிவாக புரிஞ்சுக்கலாம். இதை பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கிற அத்தனை பேரும் எங்களுக்கு பார்த்துட்டு இருக்க மாணவர்கள், பொதுமக்கள், எங்களுக்கு பள்ளி படிச்சு முடிச்சுட்டு போன மற்ற எல்லா ஸ்டூடெண்ட்ஸும் சரி, இதை சப்போர்ட் பண்ணி இதை ஷேர் பண்ணுங்க, இதை எங்களுக்கு சப்போர்ட் பண்ணுங்க. பொய்யான தகவலை ஈஸியா எல்லாருக்கும் ரீச் ஆகிற மாதிரி செஞ்ச அத்தனை பேருமே.
Now, even the High Court today took strong exception to the violence that took place. Close to 300 people have been arrested. For it, was it motivated, planned and calculated? And who is the force behind this violence as set by the High Court in its order? Will the CBCID probe and a fresh post-mortem help bring out the truth? And what about the claims that are being made by the parents of a cover-up by the school? How will anyone get to the bottom of what really happened to this young girl?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Vikramanar, spokesperson of the VCK, joins us along with C. Rajashekharan, lawyer, Vijila Satyanath, leader of the DMK, Kovai Satyan, spokesperson of the AIDMK. My first question is to Secretary of the BJP in Tamil Nadu, SG Surya. The CBCID probe is ongoing. A fresh post-mortem has been ordered now. SG Surya, are you confident that finally the truth will come out?
See, to begin with, the very fact the investigation has brought to CBCID shows that the TN government was not capable of dealing the matter in the right way from day one. Going with the version of the school kids' parents, there has been methods from day one. The school education minister was missing from the scene from day one. Today he has suddenly woken up. The chief minister was missing from day one. Today, after the violence, everybody comes into the scene. Why didn't they give proper attention to the case when it was taken to them? First question. Second question, now after all the pressure, you have arrested the people and you are taking too many decisions. Okay. But who is responsible for the failure of the law and order and failure of the intelligence? There has been violence in the school. Now other schools are protesting that they will close the schools if there is no justice to them. So there has been an entire message. The government is answerable or not for messing up the entire issue from day one. Today they have suddenly woken up and arresting people and claiming others have created problems and etc. is possible because people who are arrested belong to the ideological counterpart of the ruling party. The ruling party have any connection with the riots, etc. Everything becomes a question mark now. For now, we are okay with the CBCID investigation, but that also says that the state government has failed in handling the case
from day one.
All right, let me now take that across to the DMK. Ms. Satyanant, what were you doing on day one? Too much may already have been covered up or missed.
Hundreds of youth and villagers gathered before the private residential school in Kanyamur near Salem on July 17th morning, demanding for justice for the death of the class 12 girl student. So it was a democratic way of protest, and suddenly it turned into a riot-like situation. And like the protesters damaging the vehicles belonging to the police.
Ma'am, I'll just come to that in a second. My beginning question to you is that what happens to the suicide and the cover-up? Now, here's a young girl who's saying, I was being tortured. The parents say for 3 days we said that she was being tortured, that there was a cover-up, and no one listened to us, which is why we were forced to go to court. Why was there a cover-up?
This suicide note is underway to confirm the credibility of the letter written by the girl. Okay, and the second point is it's not the cover-up situation. It's really what happened. The investigation has started.
But now the investigation started today, the CBCID investigation. So one, let me understand, you're saying...
CBCID has been immediately ordered.
But it's been 6 days since the murder. The CBCID investigation was ordered yesterday. The murder, or the death happened 6 days ago.
No. First, it was headed by the DIG Viluppuram range, Mr. Pandyan, Sheikh Pandyan, Kallakurchi SP, Selvakumar, and the Viluppuram SP, Srinada, were all deployed in the place immediately, and the situation was under control. But suddenly, only there's hundreds of youth, suddenly they all had a democratic protest. Okay, the government allowed for a democratic way of protesting, asking for justice, demanding justice. The government allowed, but suddenly there were people who were gathering from the nearby villages, but I think it was through social media, some student federations all joined together, but it was mainly the anti-social elements.
Okay, Kovai Satyan, work was progressing, investigation was progressing, and then some anti-social elements decided to get together and set buses and the school on fire. Why? Using a girl's death for political ends?
Good to be back after a year. Look at the way it has been handled. It's yet another testimony that the law and order in the state is in shambles since DMK came to power. 7 custodial murders, and the life of a common man is at stake under this DMK rule. All the family wanted was few clarifications, either from the school authorities or from the district administration or anyone from the government who can go and address them and answer their queries and clear out or weed out their ambiguous process involved in handling this issue. The post-mortem clearly said the death happened between 3:30 p.m. of 12th till the midnight of 12th or early morning of 3:30 a.m. of 13th. And the school authorities say they communicated on 6:30 a.m. in the morning. So what transpired? When did the incident actually happen? And what is the motive? This is what they were asking for 3 days, and they were protesting. None of them bothered to address their grievance.
Ms. Satyanand, and even if you leave aside the suicide note, which you're saying you are still looking for the veracity, let me quote to you from the affidavit of the father. He has said that there are no blood stains on the floor, that there are blood stains on the wall of the hostel veranda. He says there are blood-stained palm marks. He's saying that we were not allowed to go inside the hostel. He's saying there were blood stains on the hostel footsteps. He's even saying that I tried to speak to my daughter's hostel mates, and none of this was allowed. I was just shut out, which is why he never had any confidence in the police investigation. You are blaming anti-social elements, but the father is saying, I was shut out, I got no answers.
No.
Ma'am, this is totally, actually, it has all been messed up. The full police team
postmortem, and the points by the parents added weightage to their, let me complete, and the points raised by the parents added to their suspicion that this couldn't have led to suicide, and this is not the reason for a suicide, and there was a cover-up, and the cover-up was evident from the school authorities. Rather than listening and taking a complaint and filing an FIR, what is this government is doing after things spiraled out of their control, and they hurriedly file a FIR and they are releasing the suicide note. And it's like a damage control exercise by the DMK government. It's another damage control exercise.
Madam Vigila, damage control.
Actually, we have seen so many protests before we have seen so many protests. There and all, we have not gone for any fire shooting or anything. It was all under control. Everything was under control. And suddenly this erupted only because of anti-social elements who joined the legal protest,
Who are these anti-social elements? Are you suggesting there is a political hand behind these anti-social protests? Madam?
Yeah.
Are you suggesting a political hand behind these anti-social protests?
Maybe it might have been
SG Surya? Is there a political interference in these anti-social protests?
Behind
what parents made into pawns?
So
no, if at all, see, the protests happened 24 hours have gone now. If at all there is any evidence of the opposition parties of DMK involving in the protest, now they would have been shouting from the rooftops. So they are very silent. That means they might have instigated this protest, or their absolute failure of intelligence is laughable that they are ashamed to talk anything about this. Periyar Dravidar Kazhagam, whose people the current government has arrested, is an ideological counterpart of DMK. So who instigated these riots? Where is the version?
108 police have been, they are in the hospital. 108
yes.
police are
Our
in the
question
hospital.
is, who
they
are these rioters?
Lot of injuries. Okay, and
278
people were arrested. 22 juvenile, all hitting the police jeeps, police van, police two-wheelers.
Yes. We also want the rioters to be arrested. Please tell us who are these rioters. Is the intelligence failure, truth, or the ruling government let these riots take place so that they can divert the issue? There is absolutely no clarity.
Okay, so you're saying far from being involved in the riots, you are being somehow blamed for them, and this was staged, Mr. Vikraman, to try and put the blame on the opposition. That's what the BJP is saying.
Yes.
BJP is known for instigating violence. That is well known all over the country. You can see even in the neighboring Karnataka, you can see just with hijab row, how did they make that such a big violence? We know. And Deepak and Surya, those two belonging to the AIADMK party IT wing, have been arrested because they have been circulating rumors and rumors and rumors in WhatsApp, Facebook and Twitter, like gathering youngsters. You know, Ms. Vigila Satyaland has said before that there was a peaceful protest. Before peaceful protest by some organizations, they have been doing peaceful protest. Immediately, youngsters in hundreds, they thronged the site and they came inside, they broke open the doors and they burnt the buses. These were all staged. We are getting visuals like, you know, how they have been organized, how they have been gathered from surrounding villages who have been behind this. We all know that. It is ADMK and BJP who are behind this.
And also the direct charge being made at you, and let me in fact even quote from what the court has said today. Let me just quote. This court is of the firm opinion that such a violent protest that erupted yesterday was not mere eruption of sudden provocation. It appears to be motivated, planned, calculated. There is some force behind it to show as if the state is lawless. Mr. Vikraman is saying that force is you to show that the state is lawless.
Yo, look at the apathy of DMK and its ally, voicing for the rights and voicing for something which is happening on the other way around, and social media. Now they are being branded as anti-social elements. And such is the apathy of DMK their inefficiency is exposed day
Washing
by day
for
of
the
handling
rights
the
is not
day-to-day affairs of
antisocial.
governance.
Burning buses,
Yet another example. What
attacking
should have been
police,
nipped in the
burning
bud,
buses,
they let it
attacking
spiral out
police,
of control.
destroying
And
school premises.
let me complete.
These are all called
You may
antisocial
please
elements. You
give my
wanted
time.
to show the
You
government
may
in
give my
bad
time.
light.
I waited.
And that
I
is
waited
not
till you
peaceful
complete.
protest.
But Mr. Vikraman, did the intelligence not know what is
Let me
happening?
finish.
Would things
We are
have come
not
to such
here-
a pass
we
if
are
the
not
parents
here
would have
advocating-
been satisfied that there was no cover-up? The parents were forced to protest
that is what I'm saying.
because they were not satisfied with the investigation.
What
You can ask the parents. You can ask the parents.
What should have been
Parents were
nipped in the
clearly
bud,
mentioning in the
Padmaja?
affidavit
This
saying that we
government
had a
failed.
peaceful protest. Immediately,
L&O
hundreds of
failed.
youngsters from
The
nowhere,
intelligence
they thronged the place. That was what the parents' affidavit have been
Sir,
saying.
the parents'
And
affidavit is
also
saying
they
very
wanted
clearly,
some
we are not
Thoothukudi-like massacre
satisfied
to
with the
happen.
probe that has
But
happened.
the DMK government
Are
has
you
been
at the
very
outset
responsible in handling
conceding
the
that the
protesters.
probe was not satisfactory, which is what prompted the parents to protest in the first place? We'll come to the violence in just a second. But at the outset, are you conceding that the probe was not satisfactory?
Padmaja.
Yes, go on. Go by Satyan.
See, the parents were
Padmaja, may I
grieving
come in
and they
for a
wanted
minute?
justice for
Yeah. Nobody is justifying the act of anti-social elements here, and nobody is supporting violence. Nobody should take law in their hands, and everybody are equal in front of law. What should have been nipped in the bud? There is a categorical failure from the part of the government, governance, L&O and intelligence.
Okay, Mr. Chandrasekharan.
Because of their lackadaisical attitude.
Mr.
Now,
Shi-
putting the
Mr.
blame
Rajashekaran.
on AIDMK and RSS is show the kind of damage control exercise they are trying to do. They're trying to hoodwink the people with these kinds of statements saying that no, all was well, we did the right thing.
Mr.
But it was the
Rajashekaran, first
opposition,
hoodwink
it
the
was the
parents,
opposition
now
in
hoodwink the
with
people.
BJP, though instigated the protest and violence.
Mr. Rajashekaran.
Yes, Padmaja, this is most unfortunate incident, and these kind of
hooliganism cannot be tolerated by any government. And rightly, I'm told that some 300 people have been arrested because they had been involved in this violence. Whatever the police did, maximum, they have done it in the right manner. And for everything, a private institution cannot be guarded by government police 24/7. Let us be pragmatic in understanding what is happening at ground zero. A girl dies in a mysterious manner. The investigation reveals it's a suicide. It is inside the private school. And how do you expect police and the government to just on imagination, or it is not astrology, to go inside somebody? This is going to happen. If somebody gives a complaint, after the unfortunate incident, the police will get into action, which have done it in a proper manner. And the opposition,
But that is the whole point, sir. Nobody expected the police to stand in every hostel, but they expected the police to investigate the death as a suspicious one based on the apprehensions and the things that don't add up. That is what was being asked of the police.
See, the Honorable Madrasa High Court, the judge, you just read the order, clearly says investigate this matter with a special team, form a special team in all angles. Don't spare anybody and investigate. See, when the matter is sub judice and the matter is before the Honorable High Court, and definitely the police, we have to have trust over the police. You cannot insinuate something which is not true. See,
SG Surya, you cannot insinuate and then make it into an alternative reality.
No, I'll tell you, Padmaja,
I like
see,
to
for
remind
political
Mr.
gains, you
Rajashekaran.
cannot play to the galleries on serious issues.
Playing to the gallery. SG Surya, okay, let him answer.
No, let me finish.
I would like to remind Mr. Rajashekar that there is an official spokesperson here. Secondly, Vikraman is talking about violence, but his own leader, Mr. Thirumavalavan, has visited the girl's parents and mother. The mother has complained that there has been some problem with the investigation and there is something fishy going around. But he is not answering that part, whether the police investigation was proper, whether it was carried out on time, who instigated the violence. My only question is, it is more than 24 hours. Is the state incapable to tell the people who instigated instigated the violence, which organization was behind this, who allowed it, and etc. So we are telling that there is an absolute intelligence failure, law and order failure, and total failure of government machinery in the state, because the chief minister is busy with the corona treatment, and previously he was busy with shooting for the chess competition. And the school education minister who is supposed to do his job is busy promoting films of Udayanidhi Stalin, whose International Fans Association the very same school minister is heading. Nobody is answering anything in the state.
Okay.
Yes. I thank Mr. Surya for acknowledging that our leader had gone to the girl's house immediately after the incident had broken out, and he had consoled the parents, and the parents had been asking him about, take action immediately, we want justice and all. Yes, something unfortunate had happened, and the girl committed suicide, or it is an alleged murder or whatever, and the government is supposed to take action in due process of law. We cannot immediately
No, so sir, what is your party's stated position? Is this a suicide? Is it death by suicide, or is it a murder? Because already on the first day, the senior most police official in the state had dismissed it as a suicide.
Our party is not law enforcing agency.
But the law enforcing agency called it a suicide on day one.
Nobody called it a suicide on day one. It was a misrepresented news clip that has been running in the social media. It's like used by some prestigious news organization.
Really?
News card has been running in the social media.
Surya.
The DGP has been saying this statement. That was a misrepresented
It's
statement.
a misrepresentation?
That is what I'm saying.
The clean sheet given on the first day?
Opposition parties, they have been eyeing on deaths of every single person. If there is a student...
Times Now can do a fact check. Times Now can do a fact check independently. The DGP said till that moment there has been no complaint against the school, so therefore the school cannot be blamed. The video is live, the press conference is live, it is not a misrepresentation. I think Vikraman should find something better to defend this government just because they are in alliance with them.
Vikraman.
No, DGP has been saying the investigation is going on and we should not jump into conclusion. That is what the DGP has been saying. And there was a news card from the prestigious news organization. They have put the news and they withdraw the statement. Then why did the news organization withdraw that statement they have put?
Okay, let me just ask as a final thing. What do you think then is the way out? Mr. Kovai Satyan, is the CBCID probe going to be enough, or should there be a central investigation?
10 seconds.
Yes.
You should thank Mr. Vikraman of the VCK, stating that his leader went and visited the parents, but there were no subsequent statements standing in line with or supporting the family, agreed family, because DMK ally doesn't have the spine to raise their voice when it is much needed. They always been a mute spectators and they always play chamchas whenever there is a breakdown of law and order. And this is yet another example of the same. He went and visited the family, but what was his statement? Did he sought justice? No.
Yes.
Did he make any statements with respect to how this has to be carried forward? No. When there was a breakdown of law and order, was there any statement from his leader as an ally? No.
Immediately without any bias.
Sir, I have a very simple question. What is the way out then? Should there be a central investigation for the satisfaction of all? And if that is being demanded, Vijaya Satyanand, do you think that a CBI investigation is something the state government would be amenable to?
Yes, CBCID inquiry is more than enough. They are doing in the right direction, and our Honorable CM has appealed to the maintain calm, and they want the persons who are resorting with violence, and also they have expressed the complete solidarity with the parents.
Ma'am, obviously nobody is going to condone the violence. My question is different. For the satisfaction of the parents, would you be open to a central inquiry?
Violence as well as the girl's death. It will be probed and justice will be given to the girls.
But parents. Justice is justice if the family feels that justice has been done. For that, should there be a central investigation?
No, CBCID is going on a right path.
Okay. If you say so, I'm sure the parents will have to agree. We'll keep a close eye on what the investigation is like. Tomorrow is going to be the post-mortem. We'll be tracking it very closely. For the time being, thank you very much, all gentlemen, and Miss Vijala Satyanand for having joined me. Just a week into its grand inauguration at the hands of a UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, what a mess has been created around the Grand Lulu Mall in Lucknow. It was supposed to bring in big investment, big money, but it has handled more controversies than footfalls. And the latest details emerging from investigation into the case and CCTV footage that has been analyzed suggests that the group of men who started the whole row may have planned the activity with the sole purpose of tarnishing the reputation of the mall and disrupt harmony. According to police, the footage shows 8 men entering the facility together, making no attempt to explore the mall or visit any of the showrooms. Police say the group made multiple attempts to offer namaz but was stopped by the security at the ground floor. Eventually, they went to the second floor where one group offered prayers and the second recorded videos. This video was then made viral. Here's a report from what's happening at the mall today.
ये भारतीय जनता पार्टी की साजिश है। मुझे तो यहाँ तक बताया है कि उत्तर प्रदेश का 2024 से पहले माहौल खराब करने के लिए इसी तरह के ट्रेन कर करके लोग भेजे जा सकते हैं। और जहाँ तक धार्मिक स्थानों का सवाल है, फैजाबाद में धार्मिक स्थानों पे किसने फेंका था मांस? आज जो कन्नौज में खबरें आ रही हैं वो किसने फेंका? सब बीजेपी के लोग हैं इसमें। बीजेपी के लोग जानबूझ करके, क्योंकि न वो महंगाई का जवाब दे सकते हैं, न वो बेरोजगारी का जवाब दे सकते हैं, और जिस तरीके से हर मुद्दे पर फेल हुए हैं, इसलिए जानबूझ करके जनता का ध्यान हटाने के लिए इस तरह का काम कर रहे हैं।
श्री अखिलेश यादव जी को देखिए क्या है, वो मैं समझता हूँ कि फिजिकली कहीं कुछ समझते नहीं और देखने के लिए नहीं जाते, लेकिन उत्तर प्रदेश दंगा मुक्त प्रदेश हो गया। इस प्रकार के जिन लोगों ने भी विवाद किए हैं उसमें जो कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए कार्रवाई भी हुई है, लेकिन मैं व्यक्तिगत तौर से मानता हूँ कि किसी को नमाज पढ़ना है तो वह मस्जिद में जाए, अपने घर में पढ़े। किसी को श्री हनुमान चालीसा का पाठ करना है वह भी अपने घर में या मंदिर में जाकर के करे।
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 2 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Very interesting turn of events when now the Samajwadi Party has accused the BJP of manufacturing the entire episode. Tushar Gupta, senior editor Swaraj, Nigat Abbas, political analyst, Zubair Memon, political analyst. But my first question is to Anurag Bhadoria, national spokesperson of Samajwadi Party. Anurag ji, आपको ऐसा क्यों लगता है कि ये भाजपा करा रही है?
देखिए, आप क्रोनोलॉजी को समझने की कोशिश कीजिए। जिस तरह की जब से भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार हिंदुस्तान में आई है या प्रदेशों में आई है, तब से ये सब जो नफरत की राजनीति को बढ़ावा क्यों मिल रहा है? इसके पहले ऐसी घटनाएं क्यों नहीं हुआ करती थी? जिस लुलू मॉल की हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं, 7-8 लोग जाते हैं, अंदर घुस जाते हैं सीधे, और वो 18 सेकेंड में, कहते हैं नमाज 5-7 मिनट की होती है, वो 18 सेकेंड में उनकी नमाज ख़त्म भी हो जाती है, और कोई शॉपिंग नहीं करते, कुछ नहीं करते, सीधा निकलते हैं, फिर वापस चले जाते हैं। उनकी दिशा भी, अगर जिस तरह की अगर देखा जो सीसीटीवी फुटेज आए हैं, उनकी दिशा भी ठीक नहीं है। जिस दिशा में वो नमाज पढ़ी जाती है वो दिशा भी शायद नहीं, उस ठीक दिशा में भी नहीं बैठे। तो ये हड़बड़ाहट में गए, हड़बड़ाहट में निकल के आगे 18 सेकेंड में, क्योंकि माहौल को खराब कौन कर रहा है? कौन लड़के थे जो अंदर चले गए? सरकार, जो वहाँ की एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है, जो उत्तर प्रदेश की सरकार है, तुरंत उनको पकड़ के और उनसे पूछताछ करनी चाहिए कि भाई इस तरह की घटनाएं क्यों कर रहे हैं आप?
क्या आप ये बताइए कि अगर इस मॉल में माहौल खराब कराना होता तो योगी आदित्यनाथ इसको यहाँ पे आने ही क्यों देते? लुलू मॉल को खोलते ही क्यों अगर माहौल उसके अंदर खराब कराना है?
तो मैं आपसे पूछता हूँ, बात लुलू मॉल की नहीं हो रही है। फिर आप देखिए, इंसिडेंट को इधर उधर मत कीजिए, बात लुलू मॉल की नहीं है, बात है माहौल खराब करने की। वो लुलू मॉल में कर सकते हैं, किसी और भी मॉल में कर सकते हैं। भाई उनको तो ये माहौल पे बात करनी है ना, कि कैसे समाज के अंदर में असली मुद्दों पे चर्चा ना हो जा पाए। अब हम आप चर्चा कर रहे हैं क्वेश्चन
व्हाई आई ब्रॉट इन लुलू मॉल इज कि आप ये सोचिए कि ये कैसी हिंदुत्ववादी सरकार है कि पहले ये एक यूएई की कंपनी का मॉल खुलवाती है, उसके बाद वहां नमाज पढ़वाती है, उसके बाद बॉयकॉट लुलू मॉल का कैंपेन चलवाती है। मतलब पहले मैं उसका इन्वेस्टमेंट के आई, फिर मैंने उसको बॉयकॉट करा दिया। ये तो मतलब इस सरकार की मंशा क्या है आपके हिसाब से अनुराग जी?
देखिए, पहली बात तो ये मान के चलिए, लुलु मॉल ये सरकार लेके नहीं आई है, हमारी सरकार में ही बनना शुरू हो गया तो उसको जमीन अलॉट हो गई थी। ये सरकार तो क्रेडिट लेने के आ जाती है हर काम में। इन्होंने तो 4.5 लाख करोड़ का इन्वेस्टमेंट समिति की है ना, 2 बार कर चुके जी। कितने लाख करोड़ का इन्वेस्टमेंट आ गया ये बता दीजिए आप।
ये वैसे आप यूसुफ अली साहब को बता दीजिए, क्योंकि जब वो फीता काटने आए थे तो यूसुफ अली साहब ने बोला कि मैं जनवरी में योगी जी से मिला और जुलाई में उन्होंने मेरे को मॉल खोलने में मदद की। उन्होंने अखिलेश जी का नाम लेना भूल गए, ये तो उनकी गलती है। तो ये कंप्लेंट आप यूसुफ अली जी से कीजिएगा। बट आंसर दैट तुषार गुप्ता।
अच्छा
अभी आते हैं ना, आप पे वापस आते हैं। तुषार गुप्ता को आपकी बात का जवाब देने दीजिए।
जनवरी में हुआ, फरवरी जनवरी और जुलाई के बीच में मॉल बन के तैयार हो गया।
ऐसा वो कह रहे हैं,
मॉल बन जाता है,
ऐसा वो कह रहे हैं, मैं नहीं कह रही।
क्या बात करती पद्मजा जी आप?
मैं नहीं कर रही, मैं तो बात ही नहीं कर रही। मैं अभी आप उनकी बात सुनवाती हूँ आपको।
मॉल भी बन गया,
ये खुद मॉल का मालिक बोल रहा है,
भी मिल गए, सारे ब्रांड भी आ गए।
देखिए, अनलेस आप कह रहे हैं कि यूसुफ अली जी भी दिल से भाजपा ही है, ये वो कह रहे हैं, मैं नहीं कह रही। उनकी मैं बात सुनवाऊंगी आपको। लेट तुषार गुप्ता आंसर।
जबरदस्ती बात की बात बना रही है, कमाल है।
अरे मैं किस बात की बात बता रही हूँ, उनकी बात सुनाऊंगी।
जी, ये जिम्मेदारी आपकी भी बनती है कि देश के अंदर में नफरत की राजनीति हो रही है, इसको आप भी रोकिए,
बिल्कुल
बढ़ावा मत दीजिए।
बिल्कुल, आप बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं। आपने बहुत मेरे को एक बहुत ही प्रचंड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी दी है और उसी को निभाते हुए मैं पूछना चाहती हूँ कि ये फेक नमाजी कौन है? निगत अब्बास, ये फेक नमाजी कौन है? अनुराग भदौरिया कह रहे हैं कि ये फेक नमाजी आपकी पार्टी के हैं। निगत अब्बास।
Padmaja, such a cliche way of demeaning the BJP government every time. Anurag ji needs to really understand कि ये तौर तरीके जो इनके थे ना सरकार को बदनाम करने के, he needs to stop doing that. अखिलेश जी needs to rise above this now. बिल्कुल आपने सही कहा कि पहले तो इन्वेस्टमेंट लाते हैं. One sees, you know, the entitled Hindu chief minister of almost one of the biggest states of our country is bringing in the investment from a Muslim country, going and inaugurating it, and then placing his own karyakartas there to perform namaz so that he can create a controversy. Wow. I mean, couldn't be more funnier. Anurag ji, it is very clear that these are your karyakartas, and which is why you have come up with such a big issue कि चलिए अब हम यहाँ पर create करते हैं, because that's exactly what you wanted to do.
कार्यकर्ता जाके नमाज पढ़ देते हो, आपकी सरकार पकड़ नहीं पाती है।
ऑपोजिशन के पास और तो कुछ होता नहीं है।
फिर तो सरकार
ऑपोजिशन के पास और तो कुछ होता नहीं है।
कमजोर है भाई,
फिर के हिंदू मुसलमान कार्ड खेलने आप आ जाते हैं।
माहौल खराब करने के लिए सरकार, आप सरकार को जिम्मेदार बता रहे हैं क्या कि सरकार फेलियर है, कि सरकार रोक नहीं पाती है? कार्यकर्ता नमाज पढ़ देते हैं, माहौल खराब कर देते हैं। एक बदमाश को, नहीं एक अपराधी को आगरा से बदमाश पुलिस के चंगुल से छुड़ा के भाग जाते हैं, वो भी समाजवादी के लोग कर देते हैं। कमाल की बात कर रहे हैं आप भी। पुलिस सिस्टम से, पुलिस से अपराधी को छुड़ा के भगा ले गए आगरा में। आप भूल गई हैं, एक हिस्ट्री सीटर को पुलिस कस्टडी से लेके भाग गए। ये कौन करा रहा है? ये किसकी जिम्मेदारी थी रोकने की? ये भी समाजवादी की थी। कानपुर में पुलिस का इनकाउंटर हो गया, ये भी समाजवादी का था। हाथरस में बेटी के साथ अन्याय हुआ, वो भी समाजवादी। अरे क्या बात, उत्तर प्रदेश में महंगाई बेरोजगारी बढ़ी है, वो भी समाजवादी पार्टी।
यू नो, इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट अनुराग जी, इसका जवाब दीजिए। इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट ये किया जा रहा है कि क्योंकि ये एक बहुत ही अजीब सा स्टेटमेंट हो जाएगा कि 2000 करोड़ रुपए की इन्वेस्टमेंट लेकर के एक यूएई का ग्रुप आ रहा है और वो भी एक हिंदुत्ववादी सरकार की स्टेट में। तो माहौल खराब करने के लिए ये किया जा रहा है ताकि लोगों को लगे कि देखिए यहां पर जो भी इन्वेस्टर्स आ रहे हैं स्पेशली यूएई से, उनका मूड खराब हो जाए, ये इन्वेस्टमेंट भगाने के लिए।
इस सवाल किससे है?
आपके लिए अनुराग जी।
सवाल किससे पूछ? अच्छा देखिए, पहली बात तो मेरा इस बात के कि इस तरह की बात बोलना, उत्तर प्रदेश में भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार है, जात धर्म से सरकारों को मत जोड़िए कृपया। आप जो हाथ जोड़ के निवेदन है, हिंदुस्तान में सभी जातियों का, सभी धर्मों का सम्मान है, इसलिए तो सबसे पहले संविधान का सम्मान करना सीखिए। अगर हमारी सम्मान नहीं करते मत कीजिए बीजेपी, लेकिन संविधान का सम्मान कीजिए कम से कम। आप इस तरह की बातें
साल आपने बोला महंत अपने मठ में चले जाएंगे, अब आप कह रहे हैं कि उसको रिलीजन से मत जोड़ के देखिए। आप उनको हमेशा महंत बोलते रहते हैं मुख्यमंत्री की जगह, अब आप मुझे उल्टा भाषण दे रहे हैं। अनुराग जी, आप भी गजब है।
ये
आप
इस तरह की बातें क्यों होती हैं
मस्जिदों में?
नहीं, आप ही गजब है, कमाल की पद्मजा जी, आप इस तरह की डिबेट को बढ़ावा देती है नेशनल चैनल पे। संविधान का तो सम्मान हो,
वो नैरेटिव सेट करते हैं।
का सम्मान मत कीजिए, संविधान का तो सम्मान कीजिए।
चलिए, आपके एडवाइस को लेते हुए बिल्कुल आज से आप प्रॉमिस करेंगे अनुराग भदौरिया जी कि आप कभी किसी नेता को हिंदुत्ववादी नहीं बोलेंगे। चलिए, तुषार गुप्ता वांट्स टू कम इन। तुषार गुप्ता।
अनुराग जी से मेरा एक सवाल है, छोड़िए भाजपा की सरकार कैसी है, एक मिनट अनुराग जी सुनिए, मैं आपको सुन रहा था। आप छोड़िए भाजपा की सरकार कैसी है, चीफ मिनिस्टर का काम कैसा, इन्वेस्टमेंट है नहीं है, मॉल की जमीन किसने दी किसने नहीं दी, आप ये बताइए क्या पब्लिक प्लेस में नमाज पढ़ना सही है, हाँ या ना? समाजवादी पार्टी का इस बात पर क्या स्टैंड है?
पहली बात तो पद्मजा जी से बोलिए, सवाल मुझसे पूछिए, मैं जवाब दूंगा।
इस बात पर हुई कि
यही सवाल
पद्मजा जी पढ़ी जा रहे हैं। नहीं, आप मेरे को बताइए।
आप
चलिए, मैं ये पूछ रही हूँ, पैराफ्रेज, क्या पब्लिक में पढ़ना सही है अनुराग भदौरिया जी?
पद्मजा जी से बोलिए, मुझसे पूछ
लिया, बताइए तो।
आप किसी भी पब्लिक
आप यही सवाल पूछिए,
पढ़ना सही है?
नहीं, आप बोलिए ना, आप यही सवाल रिपीट कीजिए, मैं जवाब दूंगा।
अरे मेलोड्रामा मत करिए, जवाब दीजिए।
आप एंकर है ना, आप पूछिए सवाल।
अरे पूछ लेना, एक सेकंड। तुषार गुप्ता जी छोड़ दो। आपका स्टैंड क्या है? इज इट ओके टू ऑफर प्रेयर इन अ पब्लिक प्लेस? अनुराग जी बताइए।
करवाओगे तो मैं डिबेट छोड़ दूंगा। हाँ जी, देखिए सवाल, अब मैंने आपको पहले बोला कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार है और इस तरह से 18 सेकंड के लिए कौन लोग जो अंदर घुस गए और उन्होंने वहां नमाज पढ़ दी और सरकार उसको रोक नहीं पा रही, पकड़ नहीं पा रही है, गिरफ्तार नहीं कर पा रही है। ये सरकार की जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि किसी तरह की इस तरह की घटनाएं अगर होती हैं तो उस पर कार्रवाई सरकार को करनी चाहिए। और इस देश में संविधान कानून से बड़ा कोई नहीं है।
वो तो कर रहे हैं ना सर, इसीलिए 4 लोगों को अरेस्ट किया है, जिसमें 3 हिंदू और 1 मुसलमान है, और ये जो मिस्टीरियस लोग हैं इनको भी अरेस्ट करना चाहिए। वो बात आप बिल्कुल सच कह रहे हैं, बट ये कराया किसने, सवाल ये है।
अनुराग जी
बिल्कुल, ये बीजेपी के अलावा कौन कर सकता है? ये सब बीजेपी की सरकार, बीजेपी के सिस्टम, बीजेपी के लोग हैं। ये नफरत की राजनीति को बढ़ावा देते हैं। उदयपुर में किसके कार्यकर्ता निकले?
अनुराग जी, आप जवाब क्यों नहीं दे रहे हैं? आप जवाब क्यों नहीं दे रहे? अनुराग जी, आप जवाब नहीं दे रहे। बातें आप बहुत बड़ी बड़ी कर रहे हैं कि जाति धर्म की राजनीति नहीं होनी चाहिए, कम्युनल टेंशन नहीं होना चाहिए, भाजपा सरकार ऐसी है वैसी है। सारी कंट्रोवर्सी इस बात पर हुई कि एक वीडियो क्लिपिंग वायरल की गई, उसकी ऑथेंटिसिटी की मैं आपको बेनिफिट ऑफ डाउट देता हूं कि चलिए भाजपा ने कराया। आप मुझे ये बताइए, समाजवादी पार्टी का प्रवक्ता है, क्या आप इस चीज के अग्रीमेंट में हैं कि पब्लिक प्लेस में नमाज पढ़ी जानी चाहिए या नहीं, हाँ या ना?
ये पागल आदमी है, कौन है यार, बार बार सवाल मुझसे पूछ रहा है।
मेरे बातें घुमाइए मत, आप बताइए।
टीवी नहीं है
देखिए बस।
नहीं पद्मजा जी, आप मुझसे पूछिए।
This is the hypocrisy I wanted to expose of the समाजवादी पार्टी, पद्मजा। पद्मजा, this is the hypocrisy I wanted to expose.
This is the hypocrisy I wanted to expose. मैंने जवाब दिया भी, पद्मजा जी ने पूछा था, सुनाई नहीं दिया।
Okay, I'm going to wrap up at this point because this is that juncture at which everything starts going rapidly downhill. The point being, it is very important to try and determine who is behind creating this entire controversy, because more and more one goes into it, there are very definite points of evidence that this could well be a manufactured controversy. Thanks for joining me, both gentlemen and Negat Abbas, because we have another big story coming in from Bangladesh, where yet another atrocity has been reported against the minorities in the country. In Narel, over the last couple of days, houses, temples and shops belonging to Hindus have reportedly been vandalized and torched. In fact, 2 men have been abducted from their homes and a ransom has also reportedly been demanded for their release. Why is this violence taking place, and why is the entire global community staying mum?
তারপরে বলছে কি তোরা না জিনিসপত্র আর টাকা পয়সা না দিলে তোকে কুপাই মারবো। তাই তো সবকিছু স্বর্ণ টর্ণ যা আছে সব নিয়ে গেছে। হ্যাঁ, আর কিছু নাই রে বাবা। আর ওই বাবা পুলিশ ছিল তো। আমার গোবিন্দ দেখি করে
হয়ে যাবে, সমস্যা নেই।
All right, joining me now on the Newshour is Radharaman Das. He's the Vice President and spokesperson of ISKCON. Radharamanji, first of all, what are the reports that you're getting? How did this violence start?
Actually, 2 days back, few Muslims, they started claiming that one Hindu boy has posted something offensive. But later it was found out that it has been posted by them only. Actually, they created a Facebook post in name of one Akash Saha. And then police immediately acted and they arrested that boy from his home. And the other Hindus in the area, they were very afraid. So they started fleeing. So police, they told them that don't worry, we will be here, we'll post our force here, and you don't need to worry, you be here. And since we have arrested this boy, so Muslims will not attack you.
But why would somebody do that? Why would anyone create such a Facebook post and basically try and create enmity?
Actually, this is what going on for last so many decades. Last year also during Dasera, we know that one Muslim, he placed Quran at the feet of Hanumanji, and then he instigated other Muslims about it, and then hundreds of Hindus' lives were destroyed. 2 of our devotees were also beheaded, and thousands of homes were lit. Actually, this is they want to finish off kafirs from their land. That they believe that their religion asks them to do that. So that's why there is a very systematic this thing going on. And last year when it happened, then we had approached United Nations. They had also sent delegations, and we protested in more than 150 countries. But in spite of that, after that also, they didn't attack any ISKCON temple or devotees, but what they do that they goes to these Hindu areas, and then they make a false profile in name of Hindu people, and then instigate other people, and then they attack. So this is their constant thing they are doing. This is not the first time or last time they are doing. So
do you think this is the handiwork of any radical group? Because there are several groups like the JMB, others, even terror groups, which have periodically been found to be indulging in such acts.
Yeah, of course, there are many groups, but problem is that they through madrasas, they brainwash these Muslim kids, and there is a lot of hatred towards Hindu community and other minorities in Bangladesh. So these people, they learn from madrasas, and then they practice it, and they are doing what is being taught to them, and they feel that Hindus or Kafirs are their ticket to enter Jannat. So in their mind, they firmly believe that if they kill Kafir or if they harm Kafir, then they are going to get a benediction, and their ticket to Jannat is being confirmed.
So why was this particular area of Narel a target? Why here?
Actually, attack is happening in every part of Bangladesh. It's not that Narel is like a few days back, they had done same thing in some other part. So it's not Narel. Narel, wherever they find that Hindus are, like in this particular villages, there are around 200 Hindu houses. And now condition is such that people are so afraid that they are leaving their property, their land, and they are running to different other places. So their main focus is that like this, wherever they find a Hindu community, they target them, they threaten them, and they hope that they will run away, and then they occupy their land, their houses, their women also. So this is very unfortunate. And
in fact, today the leader of opposition in the West Bengal Assembly, Shubhendu Adhikari, has also written to the MEA. He sought the intervention of the government. He's spoken of how there has been violence in the last few days. What would you say to the government?
Of course, Indian government should see this, that we can't, like, Sometimes it is said that the relationship between Bangladesh and Indian government is also important. But we see that the Hindus, they are suffering for so long. And I will also like to point out the hypocrisy of so-called international community, so-called champions of human rights and human rights organizations who are not able to hear the helpless cries of Bangladeshi Hindus. In the last 9 years alone, there were more than 3,600 riots against Hindus in Bangladesh. Hundreds of people were killed. Thousands of women, including girl children, raped. Thousands of houses destroyed. But did anyone hear the cries of these helpless Hindus? These news were ignored by mainstream media. Thanks to social media, that now at least some people are able to hear their cries. But that is not enough. We have to call out the hypocrisy of so-called champions of human rights. Most of these organizations, including some international media houses, and even UN has been hijacked by these fake people who automatically filter out the Hindu cries and sufferings. So this is very awful. We hope that the government of India will listen to the cries of Bangladesh. And relationship is one thing, but if so many Hindus, they are systematically there is ethnic cleansing happening in Bangladesh.
Was there any fact-finding committee, any such truth-finding commission that was sent by any human rights organization, Human Rights Watch, UN, Amnesty, anyone?
Last Dasera, when they had killed our devotees and when we had protested, United Nations has sent one delegation. But we don't know the report. The United Nations UN's Bangladesh representative, she has visited many temples and seen what has happened. But they didn't come out with any report or something. That time many American government, UK government, all of them, they criticized for the first time. But again, there is silence. So this is very unfortunate. Like if something happens to some other religious groups, there is hue and cry all over the world. But here we see that every month things like this is happening. Just a few hours ago, I also heard that one teenager has been hacked to death in Bangladesh because he has an affair with some Muslim girl.
Okay, we will wait to independently corroborate that. But as far as the images coming out, what is being claimed by the leader of opposition in West Bengal as well as ISKCON is truly disturbing. And remember, this is happening at a time when India repeatedly at the United Nations has pushed to have the phenomenon of Hindu phobia also recognized. Respect for all and respect for the life and liberty and freedom to practice religion for all. Thank you very much, Mr. Adhiraman Das, for having joined us. We'll keep a very close eye on what is happening at the MEA and in Bangladesh. Thanks for watching.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break. Where
the most pressing issues, the most informed minds, free and fair exchange. Converse India with Rahul Shiv Shankar.
Draupadi Murmu is also a decent person, but she represents a very evil philosophy of India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has asserted that India is moving from being an importer of defense equipment to an exporter. PM claimed a 21% rise in the country's defense exports in the last 4 to 5 years. The Reserve Bank of India has recommended the government to frame regulations for cryptocurrencies and prohibit them, but the government thinks that a global collaboration is needed for any effective regulation or ban. Female students appearing for NEET at an examination centre in Kerala were asked to remove their innerwear. Kerala Higher Education Minister R. Bindu assured probe into the matter. Monkeypox case found in Kerala. The second case has been confirmed by the Union Health Ministry and National Centre for Disease Control. India adds 16,935 new COVID-19 infections and 51 deaths in the last 24 hours. The active cases increased and crossed the mark of 1 lakh in a single day.
The News Hour at 10 will be right back after the break.
The playground in question belongs to the Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike. It is a government-owned property. Muslims are being allowed to perform namaz and prayers twice a year on the days of...
You're watching the News Hour at 10.
देश का प्रतीक है ये, हर हिंदुस्तानी के नजदीक है ये, हर डर को भगा देता है, हर देशवासी के अंदर जोश जगा देता है. Today I am here at Kishtwar and you can see the tricolor has been raised, and for this tricolor we have seen that how these brave hearts always try to ensure there is an unwritten commitment from their side that at any cost they will see this tricolor fluttering. For that even they are ready to take bullets on their body. For that they have even sacrificed their life. If today we are talking about peace and prosperity in Kashmir, it's only because of these brave hearts who had always been there for the people of the country, who had always been there for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. We have seen that few months back, some of the politicians said that after abrogation of Article 370, there will be hardly anyone to hold tricolor in their hand. But you can see that how a new chapter has been scripted, how things have really changed and winds of change have already started blowing. And you can find these youngsters proudly looking towards the tricolor, 100 feet high tricolor, which can be seen from any of the hillock surrounding this Kishtwar town. After Kashmir Valley, Jammu region, now it is the Kishtwar where we have got this tricolor fluttering high. And every Indian's chest swells with pride when they look at the tricolor, because they know it is not only about tricolor, it is also about the sacrifice of our soldier. It's all, if we see the tricolor fluttering, it is not because of the blowing wind, it is because of the supreme sacrifice of each and every soldier. Let's talk to the youngsters. कैसा लग रहा है जब आज आप ये तिरंगा लहराते हुए देख रहे हैं?
सर, ये हमारे लिए एक प्राउड मोमेंट है. आज हम बहुत खुश हैं कि हमारे किश्तवाड़ जिले में इतना अच्छा काम हो रहा है.
कितना जोश आ रहा है?
सर, बहुत ज़्यादा जोश आ रहा है. हमें खुशी हो रही है कि किश्तवाड़ में ऐसा पहली बार हो रहा है कि 100 फीट ऊपर एक तिरंगा लहरा रहा है एक ऐसे चौक पर. तो हमें बहुत ज़्यादा गर्व हो रहा है किश्तवाड़ पर भी.
आपके लिए कितना इंस्पायरिंग मोमेंट है?
सर, बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, बहुत फील अच्छा आ रहा है.
गर्व फील हो रहा है, जोश आ रहा है?
सर,
कोई जोश से भारत माता की जय करके कितना जोर से बोलेंगे?
भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय! भारत माता की जय!
कितना गर्व फील कर रहे हैं आज आप?
Air Chief Marshal V.R. Chaudhary said that the Indian Air Force has given the commitment to buy 6 squadrons of the under-development light combat aircraft Mark II. He added that the force is looking at inducting aircraft only under the Make in India plan. Narinder Batra has resigned as the Indian Olympic president. In a letter, he said that this is due to personal reasons. Batra's resignation, remember, comes after CBI searched his office in the IOA building in relation to the Hockey India case. The Enforcement Directorate has served notice to senior CPIM leader Thomas Isaac, seeking his appearance before it. This is in connection with its probe into the alleged violations in the financial dealings of KIFB when he was the Kerala finance minister in the previous LDF government. Ashish Kumar Chauhan is set to become the new managing director and CEO of the National Stock Exchange. Capital Markets Regulator SEBI has given its clearance for his appointment. Remember, Chauhan will be taking over the reins from Vikram Limai.
The most pressing issues, the most informed minds, a free and fair exchange. Converse India with Rahul Shiv Shankar.
Draupadi Murmu is also a decent person, but she represents a very evil philosophy of India. Yashwant Sinha is also a very good candidate. Draupadi Murmu is also a decent person, but she represents a very evil philosophy of India. So we should not mistake Draupadi. We should not make Draupadi Murmu ji as a symbol of Adivasi.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching News Now Overnight with me, Priya Behel. These are the top stories that you need to know about this Monday night. New GST rate hike comes into effect. Daily essentials like milk, wheat, bread all get costlier. Opposition corners the centre over anti-Aam Aadmi move. Facing flack, BJP claims the decision taken by GST Council, not party, says all state finance ministers were consulted, including those ruled by the opposition parties. NDA's presidential candidate Draupadi Murmu manages to breach opposition ranks. Several instances of cross-voting reported, counting on 21st of July. Times now accesses suicide note written by Tamil Nadu student, letter reportedly penned by the girl, blames maths and chemistry teachers for putting too much pressure and torturing, cites harassment as well. Madras High Court orders re-autopsy of Salem student after family alleges foul play. School and state deny charges. CBCID is probing the case. Yogi government mulls move to set minimum age for admission to madrasas. Samajwadi Party leader calls it a conspiracy. CCTV footage of Lulu Mall shows deliberate attempts to disturb harmony by the men who prayed on the premises on July 12th. Yet to be identified, police says Namazis did not even face the right direction while offering prayers. Samajwadi Party and TMC allege prayer showdown at Lulu Mall, controversy fueled by the BJP to polarize electorate ahead of 2024 general elections. BJP cites crackdown by police to countercharge. PFI operatives arrested for disrupt PM Modi event plot reveal outfit trained more than 15,000 men in camps running in 15 districts of Bihar, right under the nose of administration. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman tells Parliament government cannot ban cryptocurrency without coordinated global action, despite RBI favouring ban, calling it destabilizing. Now, the fury over Salem suicide still simmers after the family alleged foul play by the school and pointed out several discrepancies. The Madras High Court has ordered a second autopsy. But the key to solving this death case of a class 12 girl will lie in her last words. In her suicide note in red ink, this girl leaves behind a stinging charge accusing her chemistry and mathematics teachers for having tortured her. Here is what it says. I study well, but there are a lot of equations in chemistry. I'm unable to solve equations. Chemistry ma'am is pressurizing me. One day, she even told maths teacher that I do not study. She further goes on to say how she has been tortured, how she cannot cope up with the pressure, and how she was told that she is not studying enough and was playful, eventually ending in, I can't bear this. Not just me, they are also torturing others. She goes on to name those teachers as well, eventually apologizing to her mother and family members before dying by suicide. Now, while a CBCID probe has been ordered, the family of minor claims there is a cover-up that is taking place. Here is the mother who spoke to Times Now and alleged that the school has hushed up several other deaths as well on the same campus using bribe.
ஜூலை 13ஆம் தேதி எனக்கு ஃபோன் வருது. 6:30 மணிக்கு ஃபோன் அடிக்கிறாங்க. உங்க பாப்பா உயிரோட தான் இருக்கறா. வாங்க கள்ளக்குறிச்சி ஹாஸ்பிடலுக்குன்னு. திரும்ப நாங்க half an hour ஆவலங்க. ஃபோன் அடிச்சு உங்க பொண்ணு செத்துடுச்சு. உயிரோட இருக்குன்னு சொன்ன ஒரு பொண்ணு அரை மணி நேரத்திலேயே உங்க பொண்ணு செத்துருச்சுன்னு சொல்லிட்டாங்கங்க. அடுத்தது நாங்க கள்ளக்குறிச்சிக்கு போனோம்.